Hi, Mr. Oberka. How are the girls?
Good evening, everybody. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, David.
How are the girls?
Good, thank you.
What are they up to?
They're all doing college from their apartments.
They're doing, say that again. They're
They're
doing,
doing college from their apartments.
oh boy. I guess it is what it is.
Yeah,
Short commute.
yeah.
And what are they, where are they in college, please?
Mackenzie's at Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Science.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
Jenna's at Suffolk and Alex is at URI.
That's so nice. Say hi, please,
Okay.
Joanna. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Mike.
Congratulations for getting all the departments to have their budgets due so promptly.
Well, thanks to all the department heads.
You said it.
Michael Antonellis.
Yes, and Kelly.
Forget that. Who handed it in?
What'd you say?
How many department heads handed it in? Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Kelly did a
Hello,
lot.
everybody. The chief's on.
Hi, Chief.
Hi, Chief.
You
How
feeling
are you?
okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
How's everybody doing?
Same old.
Kelly, did you send me that
Hi,
spreadsheet?
Dave.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, everybody.
I'm looking for it right now, Mike.
Okay.
Send it to you before I left work.
Yeah, it never showed up in my email. I don't know
Okay,
why.
hold on.
Oh, looks like David got kicked off.
All right, I have to log into the computer, like my, hold on. Log.
Hello, people.
think we're just waiting for George to join.
Did you get it?
Let me look. I don't see anything. Did you just send it? It might take a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm eating my dinner. I'm sorry. I can't turn on the video till I'm done. Helen,
That
it's
was
not
me
the
2
same.
minutes ago.
Helen, it's not the same without your snacks.
I know.
No fair. Hi, Dr. Barnes.
Hi, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Good.
Here he is, right at the Paine School.
Just a good backdrop.
Are we waiting for someone, Michael?
George.
We were waiting for George, but we do have a quorum to get started if you wanted to get started.
Yeah,
Maybe just wait
7:03.
another minute.
Did you get it, Mike?
No, it's not coming through for whatever reason.
Like, is he trying to get on or he's nowhere to be found?
No, I don't see him. He doesn't look like he's trying to get on right now.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, it's 7:03. I think we should start and when he comes, then I wouldn't want you to wait for me.
Helen, we would wait for you no matter how long it took.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony.
Okay. All right. We'll call the meeting to order.
Okay.
January 6th, 2021 at 7:04 PM. We'll have a call to order and
Roll call.
we'll have a roll call.
Yep. Mike Carpenter.
Mike's muted.
Mike's muted. Okay, I'm going to just say, I see Mike, I see Hillary, I see Warren, I see David. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you?
I see Anthony, and I'm here. And when George comes, we'll just note that.
Okay.
Also present are staff, Michael Antonellis, planner, Joanna Kelly, solicitor, Kelly Russ, treasurer, various town officials and department heads, and we'll note them as we go through the meeting.
Okay, can I have a approval of minutes from December 16th?
I had one grammatical correction, and that was it.
Warren, you're muted. Unmute yourself, Warren. There you go, buddy.
There we go.
What's up, Al?
Do you have a question?
Hillary, you got something?
Just a couple, like, kind of clarifications, but also Helen, just for future reference, my Hillary is 1L, not 2 L's like Hillary
Oh,
Clinton.
thank you.
1L.
Oh,
Whatever. But in the section under part H about the posted location on the Foster Gazette, I think it should have been clarified that that's a Facebook page. It's not like a journal or anything. And then the Foster email thing is more of a listserv than a page, but I don't know. That's semantics. But the Foster Gazette is a Facebook page.
correct. Well,
It's not, both of those are Facebook pages, correct?
No, the Foster email thing, I think, is a listserv where the town sends out emails to
Right, you're right.
people who've signed up for it. So I would
Right.
use the word listserv, maybe.
Here's Georgie. He's coming on.
Where are you seeing him? Yeah,
He's-
everyone but.
Yep,
I
he's
just
still
let him in.
on.
He's connecting to audio.
Yeah, he is on.
There he is.
Hey, Georgie. Gotta unmute yourself, buddy.
Sorry, guys, having technical issues with my computer.
Okay, you didn't miss anything. The only thing you missed, do you want to approve the minutes from December 16th?
Oh,
If
that's
they are what I read online, then I will.
It's passed, so it's okay.
Okay, we approved them?
Yeah, oh, no, we didn't.
No, we
approve-
didn't.
No, we didn't.
Mo-
No, we didn't.
Motion to approve from Warren.
Thank you, Warren. Second?
Second for Mike.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike.
all in favor? I guess you have to
Roll call.
call them out, roll call them.
Yes,
Helen?
yes, I do. Okay, Mike Carpenter,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
maybe, Anthony,
Aye.
and me. Okay, so that's 7-0. Or however many of us there are. Okay. All set.
Okay, on D, the correspondence, you guys received a post that I sent out. And I'm not sure that all of you can belong to that page or whatever, but the reason I sent that post out is just to let you know how some of the people feel. I know how hard we work and some of the things we're trying to do here, and how some of the people feel or felt on what we've done or what we're doing. So I just want you to all be aware of some of the feelings from some of the people out there. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure everybody knows what's going on out there. Next, we got the election of officers.
Okay, if you don't mind, before we have the election, I just want to read the section from the Democratic Rules of Order, just so everybody's clear on the chair and the chair's authority. And it says, the chair's duty is to preserve order and fairness in the meetings by following the bylaws and rules of order, et cetera, et cetera. In large meetings, the chair must be seen to be absolutely impartial. The chair must refrain from expressing personal opinions in words or gestures and should not participate in discussion except to guide it in an orderly fashion. If on rare occasions the chair has relevant brief information, the chair may depart from this rule, but the chair must always avoid showing bias. The chair cannot make a motion. If the chair needs to participate actively in a discussion, arrangements should be made for another member to fill this position until the motion has been voted on. A member may call the chair to a point of order for wrongful participation, and the chair should comply with good spirit. In smaller or less formal meetings, members may have a bylaw, standing rule, or custom permitting the chair to participate in discussions with the same privileges as the other members. So just so everybody knows what your responsibilities are if you're the chair.
Thank you, Helen. Okay. Joanna, can I nominate myself to continue? Or somebody has to nominate me for the chair?
I believe you can nominate yourself.
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay,
Do you want to do the chair first? Or do you want to do secretary, vice chair, chair? It's up to you, but you can nominate yourself.
Why don't
No.
we see if we can get a slate and then just move the slate?
you could do it that way. I'd like to nominate the slate, obviously, I'd like to nominate myself to continue as the chair.
Okay, so the question is, does anybody else want to do that?
Is anybody else interested in being chair or nominating somebody other than Anthony? speak now.
Or forever hold your peace. Warren, would you like to continue being the vice chair or someone else like to be the vice chair?
If the members' pleasure, I would like to remain as vice chair.
Okay,
George is rejoining us. I think he got kicked off, just so everybody knows. George, are you there?
Yes, I am. I
Okay.
just got back on, sorry.
Okay. You didn't miss anything yet, because we're just waiting for
Oh, good.
motions.
Anthony is nominated as the chair and Warren as vice chair, and we're wondering, does anyone else want to be the vice chair?
okay. And I don't think, Helen, I hope you continue doing what you're doing, because I don't think anybody else would want to do that job. So
I would be happy to continue.
we'd be happy to have you. And that's it. We don't have a treasurer. We don't collect money from anybody. do we?
That's
Okay.
it.
That's it.
No.
Okay,
Anyone else prefer to be secretary?
okay, so the next thing would be, I'm not supposed to say it, but one of you guys has to say it.
Make a motion to move the slate forward.
Second.
Who seconded, please?
Warren
Mike.
motion, Mike second.
Thank you for saying your names.
All in favor?
No,
Aye.
you gotta do a roll call.
I got to do it. Yep, I got to do it. Okay, Mike Carpenter,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Anthony. Anthony, you're,
I'm sorry, I'm an aye.
that's okay, and me too. So that's 7-0.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We just keep doing our job and just keep moving forward. We'll keep plugging along. Okay. Now, 2021, 22 capital improvement program. This kind of gets a little tedious for some of you who have that weren't here last year, which Warren, you know how this works. George, I don't think you were here, and Hillary, you weren't here last year. Okay, so this is going to be pretty interesting, and it's stuff that you guys probably didn't know, and we'll find out real quick. So first, the finances, the department presentation. Each department is going to put forward a budget on what they would need or what they're requesting, kind of like I call it a wish list for what they need for the upcoming year. We discuss it. We can ask questions to the department heads. We can ask them why, where, and when, and they will give us their answer. We can make a recommendation. Kelly, the town finance manager, treasurer, and everything else will explain things that we don't understand, where the money comes from, where it's going to, and we can make our suggestions. And then the suggestions from here will go to the town council, and the town council ultimately will vote on the budget and what they feel. They necessarily don't take our advice, and sometimes they do. So it's really up to them. So
Right.
I don't want to be crude.
I'm going to add one more thing to that, if you don't mind, Anthony. And that is Kelly always tells us in the beginning what we have in our capital reserve fund.
Correct. I was going to go there and ask Kelly to take over at this point.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry.
We know the drill. I just wanted to explain to the two new members on what's going to happen and how far that'll go. Now, Kelly, are you there? I see your laptop is there.
Just the one other thing, sorry, Anthony, is that just so everybody is clear, when we're going through what the different departments are requesting, at the same time, we're considering what that bottom line is for the how much we have to allocate to all these different requests. And And so we just discuss them as they go along. And then after everything has been presented, then we have to hash it out into who actually gets what.
Kelly, can you unmute yourself?
Unmuted.
There you go. Thank you, Kelly.
Well,
Kelly, do you want to kind of like start and tell us what, how much we have, where it's going, and kind of like give us a little synopsis of what's happening, and then I guess we can take it one at a time.
Okay, so I had to pull it up on my laptop on the computer, so I can't really see you. So if somebody wants to interrupt, you have to say it because I can't see the faces anymore. Mike, did you give them that capital project fund working document with the highlights of how much we had available?
What you just sent over, I just emailed that over to them.
Not that one, the one that tells you the total dollar values, the how much is reserved for housing aid, et cetera.
Let me look.
This one, Kelly?
Hold on, I gotta shrink it
Oh,
down.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, show me again. No, because I printed my packet and I don't have it in there. That's why I just pulled it up. So, you know what I'm talking about, Mike? I had all the highlights of how much money. You don't have that?
I don't
Yeah.
think I do.
Yeah, we have that.
Is
Yeah,
that
we
the
have that.
is that
Mike,
the
didn't you
summary
send it out
narrative?
Monday?
Hold on, let me look.
It
through
has
what I
yellow
have.
highlighting in it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
Yeah, I got
Housing
that.
aid stuff.
I'm just combing through a whole bunch of documents. Let me see. I just want to bring it up.
My printer didn't print the yellow part out of it. I'm stuck. It's all right. No problem. I got it.
Yeah, it's this page.
Yes, it is.
Excuse
No,
me.
that's different from mine.
All right, so I don't have a printout of it, so I'm just gonna go for my computer. So if you look at that document, or even if you don't have it,
I got it.
have in fund balance for capital that was in excess of the 10%. So the way the charter reads is each year we transfer 2% over to capital. We actually transfer that into a separate fund. And then in the last several years, the council has added additional funds for the transfer that we sent to the capital fund. In addition to that, so that's what we have in the capital fund, which is somewhat separate. So we have, as of June 30th, 2020, $339,376 in the capital project fund. But we also have funds available that have been accumulating for surpluses and above and beyond 10% of our fund balance, which is according to an ordinance that we passed. We call it a rainy day fund, which we maintain 10% of our operating budget for fund balance. And anytime we have any surpluses greater than that, it goes into a reserve for capital. So we have about $988,000 in that fund, in that account. We budgeted $25,000 of that fund for 2021. So you have to take into account 3 separate years, where we were as of June 30th, 20, where we are during the course of this ongoing year, and where we anticipate that we will be for 22. So I am anticipating that we have about $1,500,000 in all funds for June 30th, 2021, if we have the surplus allocation in excess of the 10% that I'm anticipating for 20. That's a budgeted number, and it's based on GAAP, not budgetary numbers. So we always wait until that's final. So anywhere between 1.3 is definite and 1.5 is estimated in that fund. In the reserves. Now, in addition to that, which Michael just emailed to everybody, is a ongoing fund balance. Again, our capital project funds are very complicated in the way that they're always ongoing and they roll over for year to year. So you have to look at a multiple year picture. So what we have budgeted in reserves for each department, what we have remaining is, there you go, Mike. So thank you. So in finance, for example, the $7,200 is just money remaining that we have to pay for the remaining of our server. And that's actually overstated by $1,200 because it's going to, that's for the assessor's project. Mike and I discussed that. So there's about $5,000 in there. The $15,000, if you see on the first line, is the appropriation that we've budgeted from last year, which is actually this year, we in our last year's meeting for 21, towards the vehicle that we have to replace for the town. So we have a balance in finance of 22,000, which is earmarked for 3 different projects, $1,200 for planning, about $5,000 for the remaining balance on the server. And the 15,000 is what we really want to focus on because that's the ongoing project that we're budgeting for and we're requesting additional funds for now so that we can fully fund a vehicle for the town hall employee department's use. The assessor finance right here is basically, we had budgeted $55,000 for a new system for tax collections and tax assessing, like the admin program. And that's an ongoing project. We have $27,000 remaining funds for that because we're currently in process with that program. Social services, if you see from 20, that was the van, if everybody recalls. I think it was either, it wasn't the 21 fiscal year, I think it was the budget for 2020,
Yep.
where we allocated finance capital reserves, that's the 10% over. That's not from the capital fund, but the capital reserves. $18,000 for the purchase of a van. Carol Morrow is going to try to supplement that with use funds from grants if she could, so we didn't have to use the full 18, so supplant really. And she was able to, so we're releasing, we spent the 9,900, we're releasing the 8,000, we don't need it for the use of fund balance. Then bridges, and that work right there was for a culvert, which we did spend all of that. Not only did we spend all of that, we spent more than that. You'll see the negative 6,200. So they underspent that year in paving, so the two would balance out. So they did finish that culvert, and then we just budgeted last year, which is the year we're in, $25,000 for an engineering plan for the bridges to see if we can get an estimate of what it will cost to replace some of the bridges that, or repair some of the bridges that we have. So that's what that $25,000 is. With the influx of the DPW position, they haven't really started that process, but I've spoken with Gordon about it, and he's going to start working on that. He's got a plan. So as far as the highway equipment, the highway paving, as you can see, we traditionally budget $180,000 each year. We carried over about $838 into this year. So now we added in 2021, we added the additional 180. We've already started using that money for this year. So we have 72,000. That money will be gone by next year. The miscellaneous for major equipment, we had budgeted in the same year, I believe it was 2020, about $200,000 from the use of the reserves in the general fund for capital. That's the excess over 10,000. $200,000 to replace either the loader, the grader, this equipment that might come up, because we knew that both either could fail or would fail over time, and without putting aside money for some of this major equipment that we might need, we would have a problem. We did actually, in fact, replace the loader, but we were able to buy that outright. We also replaced with, you'll see that's the 118,000 in the 2020 balance under DPW equipment. So they used that. And as far as the 200,000, we actually leased for DPW a large body truck, a Ford 550 and a, no, those might be the two things that we, okay, so a large body 6-wheel dump truck and a Ford 550. So those are lease payments. So you'll see like the first year lease payment was 40. Next year, you'll see on your long sheet for the current year's value or what we're trying to do for DPW, you'll see a lease payment of like 47,000 for that project. So in the DPW equipment right now, we have about $220,000 set aside for DPW equipment, which may be able to go towards some of the current year's request for, we'll have to talk about that when we go to talk about DPW. What's underneath? I can barely read it. Is that the brush mower? So we did replace all that equipment in 2020. So the next thing would be rec fields, townhouse. You'll see no activity in that until 2021, which is the year we're in. That 112,000 was because we budgeted 50,000 for the rec fields, because we have a match. If we got the grant, we have a match of $100,000. So we're going to fund that over 2 years. That's 50,000. The remaining 62.5 was for the townhouse, because we also applied for a large grant from them, and we would have had from the historical Conservation Society of the state, and we would have had to fund 50% of that, which would have been 62, which would have been about 125,000, because we went for a $250,000 grant. So we were going to fund that over 2 years as well. So that's 62.5. So we currently have a reserve for that project, those two projects, 112.5. If you've read your packet, in the narrative, we actually asked that we would move that 62.5 because we did not get that grant.
We didn't get the grant, Kelly?
We didn't get the townhouse grant, but we did get the DEM grant for the rec field. We
Okay.
also got an estimate for the rec field, which was greater than the $500,000 grant that we have. So if we reallocate those funds that are already out of the reserve to this rec field, we'll be in better position overall for that project. It doesn't make sense to send it back and then turn around and then request a larger amount from the fund. It's just more record keeping for the same end result.
Was there a reason why we didn't get that grant? I thought we were pretty sure last year we were going to get it.
We were pretty sure about the DEM grant. We felt confident. We were not sure about the townhouse grant.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, there was no listed reason really when they sent the denial. So
Okay, so we're taking the money that you put towards that grant, thinking we were getting it, and we're putting it towards the rec grant.
Right. So now we have 112,500 for the recreation already before we discuss 2022.
Okay.
Well, I can't read what's underneath it, Mike. Underneath it. Is it the wash bay?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
so the
the roof.
wash bay
Town
is
hall roof.
town hall roof. We fixed the roof and it's done. We did budget money and we've paid for it. So that $30,000 was spent. And they did, honestly, it was we got a great contractor and they did a great job on our roof. The wash bay has been carried forward for years and years and years. The reason we never relinquished the funds because the project has not been deemed complete or abandoned. So the 87.6, the reason we didn't originally do it was because of the police station. And this has been going on for years now, because if the police station went a particular place where they wanted to put the wash bay originally, it would have impacted the parking lot or some sort of the area around the police station. So we've held off on that project, but it's going to be completed. We have to do something with it. And I have spoken with Gordon about that. And we have a plan for the wash bay, but it's in addition to the garage. We can discuss that later. But right now, 87.6 is what we have available, put aside. It's been for years now for the wash bay.
But my question to that, Kelly, is that 87,000 was put aside years and years ago. Okay, nothing to do. And this is what happens in these meetings. Before police stations were being talked about, but then the police station came in. But my point I want to make, the 87,000 years ago to do that wash bay isn't going to cost us 80,000 this year. Okay, it might be 97,000 or 107,000. Are we ready? Are we ready, or do we have the money to do that if we have to?
We're ready to talk about that when we get to DPW. We've kind of revised the plan, and Gordon brought up something that was important. concerning the water and the way it was going to be built anyway. So when we go to discuss DPW, we can bring that up, but the 87.6 is a good portion of it, but it most likely will not be enough, no.
Well, if Gordon's got a plan, we're all set then. So with
Well,
that.
I'm not here to speak about that. I'm just saying that I know that that money is not most likely going to be enough, but we do have a plan for when we talk about that.
Okay.
Just keep in your mind that there's 87.6 out there for that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then if you get to the school, what happened? I lost it. Hold on. Okay. Then if you get to the school, which I did want to talk to Dr. Barnes about. So we have all of this, they haven't requested any money yet from 2020. I just recently spoke to their business manager and he wasn't planning on it simply because they have that money built into their budget that they had to use. And they had to show that they were working on projects. So this is the money that they have available right now. It's $141,000. Some of it was coming from housing aid and some wasn't, but regardless, we have approved $145,000 for those projects. They're still ongoing. If the projects are complete and they'd like to allocate them to other projects, something that we can discuss, or something else that we can discuss when we discuss the school. But as far as I'm concerned, they have, as of 2021, June 30th, $141,523 allocated towards the school that they have not yet drawn down. So that is this document right here that tells you where they are. This is a moving target every single day. So every time we pay another expense for one of these projects, I don't always update it, but every 3 or 4 months, I try to update this with the total expenditures. So these numbers at the end are not 100% accurate, but they're close enough for what we're talking about today. It's important to know too, that if you went back to the other document that I was talking about, with how much money we have today, all of this money is not included in that. This is separate. These are capital fund reserves. That is separate from the document that I was talking to you about that explained how much money we have today in capital funds. So, exactly. Thank you, Mike. So where I said that there is, let me see, I'm estimating that we will have $203,000 remaining in housing aid. If you look at that very number at the bottom on the right, that's the money that we receive on behalf of the school for housing aid. That really does belong to the school. We approve the projects, but that's their money. That excludes the money that we've already earmarked for the projects that are included in the $141,000 reserve that they have remaining. I know this is really complicated. There's a lot of numbers involved and it's year to year. It's so many years involved and it's a rolling thing, but just know that whatever we talk about today, they have still $203,000 of housing aid money that I am anticipating that they will have, even though that we've said that we would use the 99 and the 40, if you look there, the 40,000 towards the allocation for 2020. So, and the 1502 is the estimate, assuming that we will have capital in reserve, we will have money in excess of the 10% in the 2020 audit when it's completed. That will bring that to 1502. If not, it'll be at least, it currently is 1302. So 1,302,000, excluding all of those reserves that we just talked about on that other sheet of paper. Okay,
Kelly.
because this is what's still in that fund.
Kelly,
Yeah.
1 second. The 203 at the bottom on the reserve for the school and the housing, is that
Yes.
with the 144 or 144 plus the 203?
Well, the 144, the 141 or whatever it was that they had
Is what we gave them.
is what we've already given them. And that has nothing to do with the 203. That 203 is just money that they've accumulated that we have not applied towards any projects yet.
So they have $340-something thousand.
Right, but we don't have $340-something thousand allocated for their projects. They currently have $140-something thousand allocated for their projects. 203 is waiting in the wings for next year or the year after to finish their projects.
But they still have $203,000 also.
Yes, No, we're holding for them in capital that is really can only be used for educational capital expenses.
Okay, so
Okay.
there's a lot of money in that budget.
They have a lot of, right, we're doing okay.
Okay,
Keep in mind that we have to talk about a police station and we're going to be bonding that out. And 10% of 10% fund balance is not considered a lot in today's standards. Bonding agencies traditionally like to see 2 months worth of working capital, which we do have if you consider the 10% fund balance plus a solid number in our capital fund balance.
okay.
So we do have that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Could I ask a question?
Who's that? Who's asking me? Oh,
David Paolino?
what's up, everybody?
I wanted to ask Kelly, this is a rookie question, I'm sure, but I was curious. When you have allocated money like the Wash Bay, for instance, that you said had been allocated and set aside for years, is that money available to go into like a money market 6-month certificate or anything to draw interest while it's waiting?
Well, all of this money is in ICS invested funds that we put in. So like we've invested it and we only invest in but yes, it's in a money market, but even money markets aren't earning a lot of money. It's in a similar type money market. Yes. All of our large funds that we don't use is pooled together. That's a cash thing versus a reserve thing.
Understood. Because I didn't see any carryover numbers and difference from month to month, quarter to quarter, or year to year. So I was wondering how you count, but I'm fine with it. I understand what you mean.
It's all in the general fund and I don't break out interest, whatever interest, and give $50 to that reserve and $20 to that or $200 for that. The general fund recognizes the interest in all our investments.
Thank you. I understand.
Okay.
Anthony, Lynn Ryder has her hand up if you'd like to.
Where is she? I don't see her hand.
Yeah,
a-
the little
it-
hand is up.
Her virtual hand.
Virtual hand. My little hand.
Go ahead, Lynn. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I wanted to.
No,
I'm
that's okay. I don't know when this is appropriate, but the 62,000 being taken from the capital budget for the townhouse. I know that you did not get the grant that you were going after, but the townhouse has serious issues where part of the ceiling is falling down and there are windows where you can see daylight when you're not looking through a pane of glass. Seriously, snow could come in. You couldn't do everything, but you could do the worst of it with 62,000. And it's just like anything else. If you don't keep the maintenance up, it's going to be 20 times worse. So that's just my opinion. All right.
It's a good point, Miss Ryder. I mean, it does need work. We did allocate 60,000 towards a grant, but I don't know who would request the repairs on that. Is that a DPW thing?
I don't know.
I honestly don't know. There used to be a Friends of the Townhouse, but I wouldn't know that now.
But wouldn't that fall under maintenance of town properties, Kelly?
I would say it would. We do have a townhouse fund. I can't tell you offhand right now what's in it. We've been putting $2,500 in it. We had been putting $2,500 in that fund every year for years, and then we used it to repaint or do some projects on it. So we depleted that, but we do have some money in that fund.
I think there's only like 7,000 maybe.
There might be maybe close to 10. I'm not really sure.
That's really not.
It's not 62.5, but the reason we did this is because it really was prioritizing a project that's currently in place versus a project that we could start once this was over. So that's really because we have to fund this project. We have a grant now for the rec field. So that's why we did what we did. I mean, but it was a suggestion, not an actual event. So if you choose to do something else and the council agrees with that, then that's fine.
Maybe that's something we should put forward to the council to consider. Maybe we might cut out a court or something. We have to look at the project at the ball field. But like I said, this is all up to the town council after we can only make suggestions.
Okay.
So if there's more, you got Kelly, or do you want to start with the department heads?
If anybody has any questions on the numbers that we went over, then sure, but if not, we can just start with the,
It would have been helpful to have had that document to look at, before the meeting.
which one?
The one that we were just looking at on the screen.
I thought you did, to be honest with you. The
Hold on, let me bring it back
one
up.
we had? I thought you did.
That, well, it wasn't
This
in.
one, Helen?
No, I have that one. The one,
Oh,
the,
Spreadsheet. The spreadsheet, Michael.
right, okay.
The spreadsheet, I had finished last week, but I wanted to tie it in this week, but other things have taken a priority over it. So
yeah,
literally wanted to make sure it was accurate as possible. This is cumulative document that's constantly changing. So I wanted to make sure it was accurate.
okay.
Yeah, I apologize. You should have had that a little earlier before tonight, but for some reason, I just wasn't receiving it in my email. There was a technical problem with
Yeah,
that.
sorry, Mike. I mean,
No, it's not your fault. I don't know why it wasn't coming through.
what you're looking at now, we just finally gave up and I took a picture of it and sent it to him. That's how we got it. But I've emailed it several times, but it still wasn't really ready until earlier today anyway.
Okay.
A question for Kelly? Mike,
Was that
Warren.
David Palino?
From Warren.
Oh, Warren, sorry.
No, let me-
Just looking in at the 2020 reserved down to social services. I see both the positive and the negative number there at 8091. Am I understanding that one was left
Yes.
over and then it was moved somewhere else, so it's positive and negative?
The reason it's positive and negative is because in order to tie the total into the financial statements and into the budget, I have to take it out because the way the budget is prepared, with that bottom line number in the budget is the actual transfer from the capital fund. Those funds didn't come from the capital fund. It came from the reserve fund. It came from fund balance and the general fund reserve for capital. So the 9909 is what we spent. And the 9909 is the amount that was from fund balance. So if you look over to the left, you'll see from fund balance over 10%.
Okay.
You'll
Understood.
also see the same thing further down below
Yeah.
with buildings and grounds, not buildings and grounds, DPW, because we budgeted $30,000 for bridge repairs and $200,000 for, but both of those funds came from the 10%. So in order to tie in the total at the bottom to the total transfer from capital, that's how I showed it,
Okay.
reflected it. Okay.
Okay. Sometimes they're side by side, but one over the other like that was just.
Yeah, it's a very complicated because our capital is multi-years and there's multi-funds and there's different funds from different sources. And it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Kelly? Okay. Let's move forward.
Mike, just keep that around in case we have to refer to it again later.
Yep, I have everything up. I'll just call it back up when we need it.
Thank you.
Michael. Do we want to, in the order that you have on that sheet, school department first, engineering board, police department that way?
I think townwide is first.
What's that, Helen?
I think townwide was first.
Right, correct. Oh, I missed that right there. Okay. Townwide. I'm sorry.
I listed it in the order that they appeared in the narrative.
Okay,
Besides
gotcha.
that, there was no other particular order, so take them however you want to do it.
Okay, we can start right there with the townwide. That's the easiest one. And that 20,000 is for, who's representing townwide? You, Kelly?
Sure. We're just trying to buy a mid-size SUV.
Didn't we weren't you gonna lease one last year and we appropriated the money
We
for it last year?
appropriated 15. We're looking for the other 20 just to buy it outright and be done so that we don't have constant, we don't want all these separate leases. Rather than just do another 15 and 10, it's just easier to ask for 20 and just buy it outright. The car should last for, we're estimating what, like 10 years or so?
So you, that 20 you're looking for is to go with the 15 from last year.
Yeah,
Total of
exactly.
35 to buy a new vehicle for the town hall there,
A
or whatever.
small to mid-size SUV that's all-wheel drive Foster.
Okay,
Yeah.
You think you can find one for 35,000 that, I mean, does that come with an engine and stuff like that?
I believe you told me that we could get, like, you were giving me different names, so don't start torturing me. All these names of different cars that were good in this, good in whatever, all-wheel drive, you know. So, and honestly, I shop for my own cars, but I don't shop for this type of thing, so I don't really know. And now that we have a DPW director and we have some continuity. You guys, whoever has some great ideas on what type of vehicle, I'm all for it, but I wanted to put aside $35,000 for that.
And you don't want to lease it.
We're already going to be leasing, if everything's going, we move forward, a couple, like 3 more police vehicles, and we already have multiple leases going. So at this point, for one vehicle, no, I don't want to lease one vehicle.
Okay.
Mike Carpenter has his hand up.
Yeah, how many town vehicles do we have out of service right now that are assigned to the employees?
We have 3 vehicles. One is an EMA truck that's breaks down, I want to say like 40% of the time. The older car was the police.
There's a Ford Taurus and then there's a. Ford
Yeah, the Ford Taurus is
junk.
It's
Ford-
junk. It's
you have a
bad.
Ford Explorer?
And the Explorer was failing, but what they did was, Norm, we have a really good mechanic. He evaluated it and we determined, like, I want to say close to a year ago, that if they put a significant amount of money into it, that we would be able to get like 3 years. So they put, I want to say anywhere around $4,000 into the transmission, maybe closer to less than 5, but 4, I want to say. And he said with the maintenance on it, they should be able to get at least 3 or more, 3 hopefully solid years out of it. And the car is just, we want to get rid of that car. We'll trade it in. We'll do whatever we can to get rid of the car. And that way we'll have another more reliable car. So if the other one goes down, we'll be all right.
One of the continuing problems, I guess, is the fact that we have vehicles out of service before they're replaced or before a new lease can be signed, which means that the town has to absorb the cost of that service that the vehicle would provide until the vehicle is replaced. Are we paying travel and mileage to town employees to use their own vehicles?
We have in the past, but the thing is, that's one of the reasons we also don't want to lease it. Because if we buy this vehicle outright with the extra money, then if this vehicle does fail in a year or whatever, we can now start budgeting for another one instead of paying off one while we're funding another as well. So
Right.
the plan is to buy this outright and start putting aside a little bit of money each year for the next couple of years so that when that does fail, we'll replace it. But bottom line, at least we'll always have one solid good car.
Yeah, there's no argument about the fact that transportation is required.
Yes.
The problem is the cost of vehicles is continually going up. And what we need is a predictable cost for the actual service that vehicle provides. So in terms of budgeting for transportation for town employees, the number of miles that they need to travel and the cost per mile should help us arrive at a expenditure for a vehicle that can provide that service. The criteria that you would need would exclude us from retaining a vehicle until it's out of service and then having to absorb the cost of replacing that vehicle. We need to establish an amortization period. We are going to invest in a vehicle so that we are renewing that service that the vehicle provides before the cost of maintenance and repair exceeds the value of the vehicle.
Right.
This is how business operates, okay? I could cite numerous examples, but probably one of the best would be UPS and their package cars, some of which are 25 to 30 years old. The whole key to remaining profitable is to keep the vehicle serviceable. And there are a number of venues that we can exercise to do that. Leasing is one, where the lease is renewed, because if in fact the vehicle becomes unserviceable, usually that's a clause in the lease that requires the lessor to replace the vehicle until the repairs are made. If in fact we assume the responsibility of ownership, it's extremely important, Kelly, so you don't have to shoulder this burden of evaluating replacement costs and coming up with funds to purchase vehicles when their actual life expectancy has been exceeded. It's just not fair to you. If we have a Ford Taurus that's 15 years old, the reliability of that vehicle went out the window and the value of that vehicle went out the window 10 years ago. And the money that we spend can never be recovered, and the money that we allocate to provide that same service for the town employees cannot be recovered. So to make it perfectly clear, if we have an opportunity to replace a town vehicle, the criteria that we should use is that we have a predictable life cycle that prevents the town from spending more money on maintenance and repair than we would on vehicle replacement. And so I guess that would dictate the replacement cycle, which I would guess on a service vehicle that gets probably low mileage, high hour use by many different people, I certainly wouldn't extend that life cycle beyond 3 years any more than, I guess the criteria there would be, you would probably be limited if you sought a lease for a town vehicle to get a lease agreement that was beyond 3 years, because your predictability and reliability are not realistic. So a lot of times when we're asking for $35,000, what would it cost to lease a vehicle for 3 years? What would it cost to buy a vehicle with the intent of trading in 3 years based on residual value? And then we'd never be in a position where we had to rebuild, over-maintain, and deal with incredible reliability issues, which you have had to deal with. And it all comes back to you, Kelly, because I mean, you seem to be the focal point. When something doesn't work or it's out of service, you run to Kelly and say, what do we do to replace this vehicle? And the option shouldn't be restricted to that. It's up to the department managers and the planning board to come up with options for you. And every time we need to replace a vehicle, we should look at the need in terms of hours and service, the cost, and the reliability of the vehicle, as well as the availability of the vehicle. The town shouldn't own vehicles that aren't underutilized and over-maintained. I guess I'm asking you a question now, but I really shouldn't have to, but how many miles are on this Ford Taurus? I would guess it's probably less than 50,000 miles.
No, you'd be wrong. So here's
How many miles are on it?
quite a few, because what happened is that's the old,
That's not an answer. How many, do you know?
well over 100,000. Because so that's why I'm gonna.
How old is this vehicle?
That used to be the police captain's vehicle. He has now owned his other vehicle. I'd have to look at the police department's he's owned this new vehicle that he's driving for a minimum of 3 or 4 years, say 3 years. And he had this vehicle for 5. So at least 5 or 6. So we're talking that that vehicle is over 10 years old. Now, he wouldn't have turned that car over unless it had over 120,000 miles on it. So I am positive when we went to put the money into the Ford Explorer, we evaluated how much money it was going to cost, how much a lease would be for a year on a midsize SUV, and whether or not it was worth it. Would we get more life out of it than the cost of replacing it with in the form of a lease? And we would. The mechanic agreed, the interim director at the time agreed, and financially, I agreed as we were already in planning for this one. So all 3 vehicles, this is the problem, Mike. You're 100% correct. We wait till everything's dead and then everybody struggles, right? So the whole plan is if we get one reliable vehicle, that vehicle will then allow the other one to be driven less. Right now, we consider only one of them completely reliable. I mean, at one point, my deputy treasurer went out with I believe Patty, and they broke down like multiple times. So
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, Kelly, that you need one. And I think last year we kind of agreed with you. I guess
So
what Michael's trying to get at is what I've been trying to get at for a long time. The question he's trying, forget what they have on that Taurus. That's junk, Mike. We got to get rid of it. How
the
many
same
miles?
is for the Explorer. That Explorer was the police chief's car. So
Yeah.
how we got both of these, that police chief's vehicle then turned over to the DPW director, who then used that vehicle
Kelly, if you go to every
a
town,
while.
if you go to every town in the state, you will see that the cars they have from the police department get handed down to the electrical inspector or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
And I understand we haven't had good enough cars to hand out. The question that I think Mike wanted to get to you real quick, how many miles do you think a year you would be putting on that car?
I would say, Mike, what, 15,000 at the most?
Okay, that's a typical lease, 15,000 miles. You lease a
10
car.
to 15?
If you did it real quick with the math, and Mike's gonna probably correct me if I'm wrong, like 600 a month, okay? A 3-year lease while it's under warranty, okay? We're only looking at $18,000, which leaves us another $18,000 in the bank. When that lease is over, turn it back in and we start again. And
Well, you're starting again to get one car. This
What's
is what
that?
happens. This is what happens when,
you will have one car, the one car that you
if you're never trying to own it, you're never going to own it, and we need 2 cars. So my theory is to pay off this car next year, then start saving for the following car, because that other car is not going to get you beyond more than 1 year.
And then what Mike is trying to say is you buy that car, in the 3 years it's paid for, we have, and you're back to what the Taurus is going to do. It's going to, warranty is up. It's going to stop breaking down, and we're going to stop putting 600 a month in it just to fix it and keep it running versus a lease.
I disagree. And this is why, because both the Ford Explorer and the Taurus had already been used for years and years before we got them, and we've already been driving them for over 3 or 4 years.
Kelly, you have 2 guys talking to you, okay, who manage vehicles for a living.
I understand that, but those cars have been used by the town for over 4 years, and they were used by police officers for 10 years.
That's why you have a planning board, okay?
Okay. It's honestly up to you.
It is.
No, it's not up to us. We're just trying to get
relieve, I think,
a point across. And if a mechanic tells you, oh yeah, it'll work, that's because the mechanic has a job. And if we got cars that he can't fix, we don't need them. So he needs stuff to fix. That's why he's a mechanic. You know, he's there to fix things.
I just think that our needs are so great in other departments that if we had one reliable car and started saving money for another, we can buy with the town departments and put the money in some of the other departments that we need the money. That's really what the goal is.
Yeah, but Kelly, we don't have a manager of vehicle operations, okay? We don't have an investment portfolio that allows us to take responsibility for managing vehicle operation, maintenance, and replacement. That all comes back to you, and you're supposed to be the treasurer, and all you're supposed to be doing is determining whether money is spent appropriately. We're suggesting that wherever possible, we relieve our town employees who are already overtaxed and challenged beyond the hours of the day they have available to work to handle crisis after crisis. And you can see what's happening. You now have 2 vehicles out of service that can't be used at all through no fault of your own because they were inherited without a plan.
They're not out of service, they're in service.
But nobody wants to drive them. They're like afraid to go out with them because they're gonna break down and nobody wants to be in it, and I get it. You know, it's understandable.
Yeah.
Here's the point that I just don't understand, and then I'm just gonna move on to the next one, Kelly.
Yeah.
We obviously know you need a car. Here's what I don't understand. Just please explain this to me as the treasurer. And I'm not riding you, and I'm not going anything. You have $35,000 that 15 from last year, 20 from this year, that's 35 that we're putting for a car. We can spend only 7 this year, okay, for the lease for this year. And you would have $27,000 left that you've already appropriated, and you can use that somewhere else. Next year, you'll need only another $7,000 for the second year lease, okay? And the third year, another 7. So technically, you can get this brand new car, use it for 3 years while it's under warranty, or for $21,000. And if we don't ever put another dime towards that, we've still got $15,000 left. That's just how Mike and I in business, we look at things. And then by the time that car needs tires, you'll have a brand new car. You won't even have to buy tires for it at 10,000 miles a year.
Leasing
That's just me saying.
is never financially the better option.
Where do you get that?
Leasing to own is the better option because we would use that car, that vehicle for a period greater than the value.
Kelly, leasing even includes drivers at this point. And that's what Penske provides and Leaseway provides. Leasing is a very viable option because it reduces your operating costs.
It is, and we've used it, but leasing to own, like leasing to turn over a lease and constantly have that payment is not necessarily the best financial decision long-term for something that you could actually use for a greater period than the period of the lease. We don't put so many miles on it that we could actually own it for no payments for 8 or 9 years. That's valuable to us.
And at the end of the 3 years, you could buy it if you would like.
The costs are not predictable. Even fuel cost isn't predictable. And that's not going to be in your lease.
Right, but that's not going to change regardless of which car you drive.
Okay.
All right. Yeah,
Mike,
we're trying.
I know.
Vehicle management and operations. But if you really love it that much, you can have it.
Okay, hold on, Mike.
Helen,
I would
Helen
like
wants
to thank Kelly for her input and for her trying very hard to do the best for the town. And I'm going to apologize for some of the other members on the board for, I think, being a little rude to you, Kelly.
What?
It's okay. Everybody feels like a particular way. I'm actually thinking that financially speaking, long-term,
you
I
rude
have
to her?
evaluated it. In this case, it's better to own it. In the police officer's case, it's better to lease, but still own them at the end. And then some property, it's just better to lease and keep more of a revolving lease. I just think in this particular case, owning it, we will get more value for our dollars to own it over time because in all honesty, we'll get more than, we could get well-maintained vehicles for what we use 10 years out of this car if we treat it well and we act appropriately. And that's just not my opinion. I've discussed this with the department heads who drive it, who feel similarly because they've been driving a car that is already 10 or 12 years old. And we replaced it because it hasn't been maintained and we weren't the sole owner. So the sole owner originally was putting tons of miles on it originally. We would not be doing that. So if we're currently driving a pretty unreliable car that's maybe 10 or 12 years old, but have a lot of miles right up front, we could easily drive it for 8 years, having a smaller number of miles for ours. And
Kelly,
then
you're absolutely right. That's your opinion. We'll bring it forward to the next.
it's just
thing.
my opinion, exactly.
I mean, it's your opinion, my opinion, Mike's opinion, Helen's opinion that we're rude, but that's why we're here trying to.
Thank you, Helen, though. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Helen. Okay, so if you want me to sit here like a bump on a log and be a dope and let everybody do what they want to do, Helen, I'll be glad to do that.
As the chair, Anthony, you're not supposed to say anything.
I know you read that to me at the beginning. Okay, so if you don't want me to be the chair, I'll not be the chair and I'll speak up more. How do you want to play that game?
Anthony.
Okay, I'm the chair, Helen. That's enough out of you. We'll move forward. Okay.
I don't think that this is necessary. Helen read the chair description. I don't think it was geared towards you. I think it was geared towards if anybody wanted to do it, they need to know what they're getting themselves into.
Listen, I read the book and nobody's followed that book in the last 15 years in this town, so cut it out. Okay, let's move on. Next, the school department. This whole process is really, from day one on the board doing this is really a waste of planning board's time because we don't make the ultimate decision. We can't even make an opinion because we become rude. But we'll move on. School department. Mike, you had that beautiful smile on your face. Every time I looked on your picture, you're smiling there. It throws me a curveball because nobody smiles around here. That's a beautiful picture of you, Mike. Go right ahead, buddy. Ask us what you need.
I'll try to smile. I'll try to smile in person too.
Mike, we're gonna have to take the cars off of our list.
Yes, no cars. Brendan, don't even come up with a car, Brendan. I like your background, Brendan. That's pretty cool.
I've been waiting out here in the cold for a while now, you know?
Go ahead, buddy.
That is a good background. I'm going to touch on two separate aspects to the presentation, and I'll keep it brief because you have the majority of the information in your packet. One will be to just do a high-level overview of the two projects we want to do, and then to discuss some of the funding that was tie into some of the funding that was discussed earlier. So what we are proposing for Captain Isaac Paine were two capital projects for this year. One of those capital projects will be spread over 2 fiscal years. It's replacing the well system, basically it's the water system in the school. And because of the projected cost of that, it being over $300,000, we know that's a struggle for both the town and for the school in any one fiscal year. So our proposal was to fund this over a 2-year period. We did something similar to that a few years ago. We had $500,000 heating that we spread out over 2 fiscal years. So for those of you who've been inside the building, you may or may not know that the well, the first time I've seen it, but the well is actually physically located in the building. Not out on the grounds, but literally in the building with concrete walls and a roof on top of it. So it was, my understanding is the well is original. In 1985, some baffle tanks were put in for storage for pressurized tanks. The system has been on a 5-year capital plan for a while. It has been approved by the Department of Education as a part of our 5-year project, which means we would receive 35 cents on the dollar in reimbursement from the state. So this project would basically entail moving the well from inside of the facility to an actual well outside of the facility. It would also involve doing a pump house, building a storage, a unit for the pumps, and to do a control system for chemical control for corrosion. And we did get an estimate from Northeast Water Solutions. Just so you know, because it's considered a public water system, there's a number of hoops we have to jump through that are different than just drilling a well for a private residence. We went through about an 18-month process at the region to redo a well and pump house system at the region. So we were proposing from the town, with that being over a 2-year, we're looking at that being, for the two projects, was going to be $188,000 combined. That would be both the local share in the town, and Kelly's come up with a way to finance that I'll touch near the end. The second project is a replacement of the roof or a portion of the roof. We've had built into our capital plan about $300,000 to over a 5-year period, and then another 30-something thousand for roof repairs, with the goal of replacing the roof in sections. So in the Captain Isaac Paine, as you know from being in the community, was built, and then it was added onto, and then added onto, and then added onto. So there are currently some sections of roof that are flat and they are not properly pitched. And if you're walking in the building, there's some flat areas on the left and right of where the gymnasium is. Then over the boilage room and the custodian area as well. So we do have an estimate of that of a little over 100, about 110,000, 112. And that, again, is just an estimate. Obviously, we would go out to bid on this project as we would go out to bid on the well system. For the roof, some of the reasons that, again, when the roof was repaired previously, there was just a layover done on the roof. The roof structure itself was not adjusted. So there are some flat areas of the roof that were not pitching in the right direction. And there was just an overlay done on top as opposed to wedge insulation being put in, which would have changed the pitch. And so part of the cost of it is actually changing the pitch because we actually have a couple inches of rain that'll pool on top of the flat roof, at least in some of these sections. Kelly mentioned I'll talk finances and then I'll open it up for any questions, and I can certainly go into more detail, but I just wanted to do high level. Kelly mentioned that there have been resources allocated in previous years that we haven't asked for. And with that being about 141,000, we do anticipate asking for those funds because one of the projects that's been outstanding has been the replacement of the playground. So that's a fairly substantial project. We expect that to be going through this spring and summer. So we will be drawing down on that $141,000 to fund the replacement of the playground, which was a project that the town council and both the planning board and the town council had previously approved. The last component of money that has been allocated for the school, and as Kelly said, stays tracked to the school system, is what we call housing aid reimbursement. So whenever the school spends $1, the state gives 35 cents back on that dollar as a kind of a cost share. Because of the wealth of the community, this community receives about 35 cents. So when we spend $1 million over time, we get about 350,000 back. At the region, we get about 500,000 back because we get a bonus for being partially regionalized. If we were regionalized K to 12, just as an informational piece, right now, for every $1 million we spend, we get back 350,000. If we were regionalized K to 12, every $1 million we spent on capitalizing Paine, we get back more than 600,000. So we pick up about another $260,000 a year. I'm sorry, another 260,000 on every million if we were regionalized. So in the proposal that Kelly and Mike advanced to the planning board, they tracked those two projects, the roof and the well, at a combined cost for this fiscal year of $188,000. And they were recommending funding that out of the $203,000 that has money that's come back from the state specifically because of projects we did in the past. I'm not against that, but I would just alert the council that, the planning board, sorry. I'll just alert the planning board. We're gonna draw most of the 141 for the playground. We would then be drawing 188,000 of the 203,000 of that housing aid. So when it comes time to fund the second half of this project at over $100,000, we would be needing the town to, the planning board and the town to kick in some money a year from now in the 22-23 school year or fiscal year as we're funding the second half of that well project. So we'd be able to handle it through this, but I'll let you know both of those sources will be basically be drawn down. So we'd probably be needing some assistance. The very, very last piece I will add is that cost may be diminished. And we will know that by year 2 of the project. As I said, we submitted a project at the region. That project was $800,000, approved by the Department of Health, Department of Education, Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. We're getting back 49 cents on the dollar in housing aid. And then the state through the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, if the voters approve an authorization, it would be another $200,000. We're able to, basically the state would forego about 200,000 of the cost. We'll net about 170 of that, or about 165 of that after other costs. But short answer is we could apply for some additional state funding for this that might mitigate some of the overall cost, but that would be part of the overall project we put together. So Cliff Note version, we're looking for 2 projects and there's already money that's been previously allocated. So we're basically looking to draw funds that have already been allocated in the past.
Any questions for Mike? Mike? Warren, let's give Warren a shot first. Warren, unmute yourself.
Warren, you're still muted.
Go ahead, Warren.
On the roofing project, Mike, if the project involves significant insulation to get that pitch to happen, does the state energy program still kick in extra reimbursement for energy-related projects?
Phenomenal question. So yes, there's it matters the actual cost. So yes, there's the possibility, but it'll go to what the overall cost, the cost of that energy efficiency has to be a certain portion. So it's a possibility, but I can't guarantee that we'd get that bonus, but that is a potential option.
Just remember some work on the region where there was an energy bonus of 7 to 10%.
Correct. Great question, by the way.
Mike Carpenter.
The 2-year project, Mike, does that have to do with the well and the roof and the playground?
So the playground was previously approved, and we're planning to do that through the spring and summer of this year. And that would be drawing on the 141,000 Kelly showed you on the previous spreadsheet of unresolved projects. The roof we'd be looking to do in 1 year, and that cost is estimated at 112. We have an estimate from a roofing contractor. It may be a little more, a little less once we go out to bid. The 2-year project would be the well and the pump house and the corrosion system. Because that project has an overall cost projected to be over 300, that would be something that would be spreading out over 2 years. So playground is already funded and be drawing down this spring and summer. Roof would be next fiscal year, and the water system would be next fiscal year and the year after.
Okay, I'm a pragmatist, so I'm thinking about what's going to shut the school down. Not going to be the playground, probably not going to be the roof, it's going to be the water system.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to extend the project 2 years, I would say the priority would be to get the water system in hand in the first year, because that has the potential of shutting down the school. And related to that, and this is not something that's budgeted, not something that is on the agenda, so to speak, but related very, 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 very importantly to that and to your security system and to your sustainability is that emergency generator sitting out there that I don't think has even been looked at for several years. Do you have a service contract on that emergency generator? And I would suggest, and I think receive support from the other board members, that we tell the town council that the priority here is keep the school open, attack the water project, because it will shut the school down, and marry that to the emergency generator, which is going to operate the water system when the power is off. Because that school is also the emergency management center. So there's a vested interest on the part of the town to keep that facility fully operable as a school and as an emergency management recovery center. And that should establish our priority. So I really don't think that's in conflict with any of your intentions or any of the town's intentions for controlling budget. It just correctly prioritizes the workload.
So I wanted to defer to John.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Who's that?
This is David Paolino.
Your picture wasn't there, Dave, so your face wasn't there, so I didn't see you. But go ahead, David.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have it on. I don't know why it's not there.
There you
There we
are.
go.
Okay.
What I'm thinking is what Mr. Carpenter said. The generator is not operable right now, the emergency generator?
Yes, it is. It's maintained quarterly. I'm John O'Burka, Director of Facilities. The generator was fairly new when I started there 7 years ago. It did have an issue with, it got struck by lightning, the electrical, but that had been replaced. and it's been
Mhm.
operating ever since. It's
So it-
maintained
Okay.
on a quarterly basis.
Mike, is that a Caterpillar unit?
Yeah,
Mike Cop-
it's a cat unit.
So do they have a
Last time-
maintenance
when's the
program?
last time it was, excuse me, let me just jump in for a minute. When's the last time you had it load tested?
I would have to go back and look, but I believe it was a couple of years ago when they replaced there was an electronic board inside the building that connected to it that burnt out.
You're
The
in
lightning
it.
strike.
Yeah.
And once they repaired that, it was fine.
Okay, so you do have a maintenance contract, right?
Yes,
Is that on your budget?
that comes out of the maintenance budget.
And who's that with?
It's
That's a good point, Mike Carpenter. Why would you go several years without a load test?
Well,
Or are they transferring the building load semi-annually or annually?
in a hospital, it's required monthly, and generally data centers do the monthly test as well. And it's only because you want to make sure that the system will come online and take the building load. And I think that's a 300 kW generator, if I'm not mistaken.
it's smaller than that. It doesn't take the full load of the building.
Yeah, well, again, I don't want to get out in the weeds on this. It's just that I'm very delighted that you have a maintenance contract. It's important that whoever does the maintenance contract does a load test and the required maintenance on the generator, simply to protect the fact that we have this designated as an emergency recovery center as well as a school. Nothing's more important than our kids. Nothing's more important than the health and safety of the town. So again, we have to ratchet up our concept of what takes priority. And I wouldn't want to be in a position to have just spent 140,000 on playground equipment and not be able to supply water and reliable emergency power in the building of that type. So I would just humbly suggest that we reestablish priorities here, maintain the same budget amounts, and go forward.
Mike, can I
Brendan
speak?
Mara, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Hey, we totally agree with you. Let me just start there. I think the first time I had to sit through one of these planning board reviews, you raised some of these concerns and we took them very much to heart. So we have like the core four is what we're looking at. We have our well, we have our septic, we have our generator, and I forget the fourth. We had a fourth. But those are did I say septic? Anyway, those are the items that we want to make sure that we're taking a look at. We're operating, it was boiler. The boiler was the last one. So we want to make sure we have heat. We're ensuring that we're maintaining them, we're testing them, and we're keeping them on our budget where appropriate for a capital improvement project. So this was a concern that I think you had raised a while back. So when our group met before this, we did discuss making sure that we were going to be able to field those questions from you to make sure that we could address them to satisfaction, because we completely agree. We don't want a budget to replace a well every year, to make sure it's always top notch, but we want to make sure that we can reasonably say that it's going to operate. So the reason that we've structured this one the way we have is because there's a long lead time to have it approved by the state. So the playground project was anticipated to be completed last summer. However, because of coronavirus, the state review period took a lot longer than we anticipated, and the project itself was put off a little bit. So that one is in the hopper, but it was intended to be done at this point. The well project is funded over 2 years, but it's really a function of that review with the state. So we're putting it in front of you guys now. So we're teed up to do it in a reasonable fashion. But even if we wanted to start tomorrow, we couldn't unless it was an emergency situation, because it needs to go through that public approval process. So we're totally on board with everything you just said as far as priorities and those core systems for the building. We'll take that into advisement as far as load testing the generator and see what we're currently doing. And, next year when we have the same review, hopefully we'll be able to answer, we load tested the generator on June the 4th and it was satisfactory. It's a valid point and we'll take it to heart. And I know John and Dr. Barnes can speak more to the specifics of that, but I just wanted, that's why we're with you.
Brendan, a quick question. Just only because I'm looking at the price that this estimate was 360,000. If you could just answer two questions. The well that's in the school right now is no good.
we're having some serious problems with it. I mean, John can speak to the nitty-gritty of
Not
it.
producing enough water?
No, we're producing
John,
enough.
What's
It's
that?
very, it's very high in iron content. So we're
Okay,
having issues with the system clogging up.
okay. So replacing everything. So and just a question, because if you drill the wells somewhere else and connected it to the system that's already in the school, and the well that you drill, a new well, what's to say that the new well is not going to be high in iron and so forth and so on, like the original one?
Well, the way they're designing it is totally different than the way it's designed now.
Okay, so the way what's designed now is obsolete, is what you're telling me?
Correct.
So we're going to spend, okay, so you need to, okay. And okay, let me ask you this. You're not going to save much, so it's only the drilling of the well. I was going to say, why can't we use this well with a new system? Okay, no big deal. You have water stations in the school, I understand, right? Where the kids can drink, or they bring in their own bottle, or so they're not even drinking the water in the school?
We have a filtered bottle filling station, 2 of them.
Okay.
So we change the filters regularly.
Okay, so the kids are pretty safe with
Yes,
with the water?
it's
Okay.
tested every month.
Okay, I was just, and they're putting a generator in this system also? So we would have 2 generators in the school?
No.
I'm looking on the back of this, it says it's gonna have a gas-fired generator on the proposal that these guys put in.
I didn't see that.
Right here in the back, a gas-fired emergency generator is installed. It's gonna be 100% of the school's demand. The generator is provided with automatic transfer switch.
That came from the Northeast Water System, so
Yeah,
when John mentioned about, and I'm sorry, when Brendan mentioned about lead time. So just to be clear, when I say over 2 fiscal years, I'm looking at that being next spring, because a good time to take a water system offline is through the summer when kids are not present. So I'd be looking to start next spring and not 18 months from now, next spring into that following summer. But there's a whole lead time where we have to actually get someone with specialty in this area to design the system. Then the Department of Health with the Office of Drinking Water Quality has to review the system and improve it. Then the Department of Education has to do design reviews. So there's lots of eyes that look at it, and that process is painfully slow. So we have noticing some hiccups with the system, and because and it is definitely an outdated design, it is the original well from the school. So before it becomes a critical fail, we're trying to be a little proactive and start the design process and start the replacement.
it's understandable. By the time you dig the hole for the well, this $300,000 estimate's gonna be $400,000. That's the thing that we need to get ready for. That's what everything we do in town, we appropriate every year. And by the time we do a project, it goes up and we're not ready for it. But I guess that's what we can, any other questions for the,
Yes, I have a question. This is David Paolino. So I didn't hear an answer to that, and I apologize. Maybe I missed it. Why is there a new emergency generator tied into this request?
I didn't get an answer, David.
Yeah, I believe they put the packet together rather quickly. So it's possible to tie this new system into the existing generator.
Well, I understand completely what you're saying, but presenting this budget proposal, presenting these line item numbers to the town council and to the public, I think we should be a little more clear. Like Mr. Renzi said, I didn't hear that the generator had failed. I didn't hear that it couldn't carry the load. Now, there is a possibility that the new additions to the building are going to require more load capacity from a new generator, but I think that needs to be discussed and outlined. Because if I'm not mistaken, Mike Carpenter, I mean, a 300 kW generator, you're probably looking at $200,000 right there. Installed a brand new generator with a transfer switch.
So, Mr. Paolino, if I'm not mistaken, the current generator does not power the entire school. It doesn't carry the load of the entire school. It is lower than that size. So we will work back with our consultant to see if he's looking to build a redundant system that makes up the difference. So if we, oversimplifying, if we're getting half the load with our current and with the new one, we'll work on refining that to make sure we're not over.
Yes, please do, because synchronizing two generators at once is not a simple or inexpensive thing to do. What you'd have to do is you'd have to propose a load study to see what exactly is needed for emergency capacity and how to obtain that amount. Mike Carpenter would agree, synchronizing two different generators is not an easy thing to do when you're talking about load shedding or sharing load.
Well,
Paulino is exactly right. And this is just a relook. I'm glad the topic came up. I'm glad our chair, Mr. Renzi, identified the generator component, because you already have a generator. It could be far more economical just to upgrade that existing generator than add a whole new electrical system in the building. All good considerations.
We can, so we move on a little bit quicker.
Yes, based on what Brendan said in terms of prioritization and what David said in terms of generator relook, and you know what we've discussed, it's obvious that this is really a critical issue, and when we present it to council, they have to realize that the well is, as Mike said, it's original to the building, and we don't want to hang our hat on a casual recommendation here because we don't want the school shut down.
Helen, did you have something to say?
Two things. One is, we please give the people who are presenting credit for developing these things, which, you know, mostly are something that's going to be in the future and still worked out, but they're trying to give us a budget. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I'm going to disagree with you, Mike. The roof absolutely can shut down the building. It did a couple of years ago.
Can I say something? Anthony?
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
So this is nothing to do with your projects, Mike, or whatever. Like we discussed your capital plan. Obviously, it's a good one. It's based on a lot of information that you've compiled. You've worked hard on it. My question is finance, like funding. So we have the housing aid and you're asking money from the town, but I wanted to know what you're using the money that you put in the budget for, because I looked in your budget and you are budgeting $100,000. I don't know, is there 75,000 budgeted this year and 100 next year, or is it 100, or is it 75,000 the year after? Plus you have money in your own capital fund. So when you're saying the town's going to absorb this, this is like the amount, I mean, the school was going to absorb beyond this housing aid. The amount you were absorbing was less or equal to what we were going to fund, and then you were going to reimburse using housing funds. And my question is, do you have a plan for the money that you have in the budget, capital, that you now are budgeting per the new law that you have to budget in your operating budget for capital to maintain your buildings? What are you using that funding for?
So we're building our budget for next year now, but we use a lot of that funding for ongoing maintenance, rotor drops in the HVAC system. You have repairs, and then there's things that I understand this year is a little different. I'm not saying this year is a typical, but for example, this year, outside of the planning board and the capital projects, this year we, for example, implemented or installed sinks in the school system that are hands-free, because with COVID, the kid washing their hands, it didn't make sense for a kid to touch a faucet with a dirty hand and then wash his hands and the next kid goes touch the faucet. So we put in hands-free faucets, for example. We also had to establish an isolation room in the school. And I would say that's atypical. But in the school, we had a nurse's office where a child could go if they got a skin knee. we had to create a completely separate facility for a child who was going there who may have COVID symptoms, because we didn't want a child with a skinned knee sitting in the same room with a potential COVID positive case waiting to be picked up. So there are things like that that go on every single year. I'm just highlighting just a couple from this year that we
Right.
to that maintenance. So we
But
do.
it's the one,
those
it's the
projects.
new, it's the new line item, not the maintenance of your buildings and grounds. It's the new line item that you have to, that was the change related to the law, the change in the law where the schools had to start funding. Like, I looked at your budget, you had projected several years, and in that projection, you were gonna plan, I believe it was $100,000 for that. Now, that's all really new funding. It's not for like, you always budget for changes and like some of those smaller items. This was for capital to maintain your building. So I'm asking, could you use some of those funds to fund some of this? And you also have a fund balance in your capital fund for, because you have the same policy that we do. You have a certain amount set aside for fund balance, and then above and beyond that, you have money set aside for capital. I mean, I believe that amount is close to $600,000, or will be at the end of this, at the end of that audited 2020, because we're in the process of that now. Like, are you planning on using any of that before you come to the town? And I would have asked you privately, but with all the
Yep, I get it.
thing of this, and it was, we didn't have enough time to do it.
So a lot of that money is when we've carried some of that, when we submitted our plan to the state of Rhode Island, our current 5-year plan had $1 million worth of expenses. Now, the $100,000 built into our annual budget every single year does not equate $1 million. So we had to submit a fiscal plan to the state showing how we'd be able to fund that $1 million 5-year plan. Some of that was drawing money from our capital projects set aside, which you talk about in the fund balance, to fund some future year projects. Like, we have other sections of roof to replace, and replacing a roof is not a $20,000 endeavor. So some of those funds that also carry future costs. And we are trying to fund some of this with some of our fund balance, and talking to Mike. When we initially proposed what we'd be looking for from the town, we were proposing that the school department would carry about $54,000 of that cost, and that could be coming out of some of that 2 to 2.5 to 3% budget item. But it can also go, just so you know, Kelly, that money is not just for completely new things we've never done. So if you were spending $10,000 a year replacing lights, or $10,000 a year replacing ceiling tiles, that can count towards that 2, 2.5, or 3%. So it's not completely new expenses that you've never done. It's expenses that you can categorize as maintaining the facility. So.
Yes, I know, I do know that, but that was already budgeted. The 100,000 that was anticipated, I don't know what you're gonna end up budgeting for last year, but it was anticipated at 100,000. That is new money, because the lights were already budgeted in here. So even though when you report to the state, you can apply those expenses to the state, the $100,000. And I'm just saying that as a team, we should try to like keep the expenses so that, because we do, like, it is all town money because we fund it. So it is all town money. So if we could allocate more of that maybe to your fund balance, as long as your fund balance remains strong in your capital fund, so that we can not save our money, but basically start funding possible debt for the police station instead of going back to and ask the taxpayers to fund in its entirety. That's my hope. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, you guys, to be honest with you, Mike, not to cut you off, Dr. Bonds, okay? We all agree with you. That's probably something, Kelly, you and Dr. Bonds can talk about it. I mean, we're as buzzing with this well. I'm still like lost for words on a $400,000 well. It was like you said at the beginning, Dr. Bonds, I'm thinking like put one in my backyard for like 10,000 and move forward. But I guess we can't do it that way. But I guess that money, that'll all come to the town council. They'll make a decision. Dave Paolino, you can bring up those issues you brought up with us at the council when you guys vote on the budget and have to clip it, but at least we're all aware of it. I mean, are there any other questions from any of the board members?
Warren.
Warren, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, just along with that, that well, I don't know how much of the well is going to include some of the existing antique infrastructure for the water delivery. I mean, that's got to be in there as well too, Mike.
Yeah, on that estimate, yeah, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of, yeah, that's all in there.
Yeah.
'Cause
Warren.
that shuts the school down. I mean, you got guys in there repairing that monthly, I'm sure.
I mean, it's pretty impressive what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, to bring in the water, but they'll have to fine tune it and probably go out to bid again, and I'm sure all of that, so.
And as we learned on the regional school and some of our fine citizens trying to open water sensitive businesses in town have learned, the health department is hell to deal with.
Right.
I'll back Mr. Bonds up on that portion of it.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Anything
Sir?
else? Go ahead, David.
Yeah. Kelly, thank you for the presentation. Helen Hardy, thank you for pointing out that sometimes construction guys like me are less than sensitive. But thank you, Dr. Bonds. Thank you, Brendan, my buddy Brendan Mara. Thank you for the presentations. Greatly appreciated.
John O'Burka does all of the actual work. We just.
Group effort.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right. Moving forward. Engineering Board. They're requesting 270,000, and Kelly, you allotted them 125. Somebody's
Sorry, I
talking.
was muted. My dog is right here and I mute when there's issues.
That's okay. Is there anybody from the Engineering Board? I don't see,
Yes, Tom Walden is here.
where is he? I only see a name.
That's me, just the name.
Oh,
Video didn't come up for whatever reason.
Can we talk to a name, or do we need to see a video to do this?
He's not a board member, so
We
That's
can just
fine.
listen, we can just listen to the voice?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom, go ahead, buddy.
Okay, the engineering board requested 3 separate items. One was 150 towards fire truck, which had normally been 100. We decided to ask for 150 to try and replace the 80,000 we spent this year on truck repairs that were catastrophic, I guess, describe them. And the following years, we dropped it back to 105, and we went up 5,000 every year because inflation in fire trucks runs at that rate, and we didn't want to keep falling behind. The second item was a rescue truck, which had been budgeted previously at 25,000 a year. We changed that to 50 a year because at 25,000 per year, it would take 12 years to save enough money to buy a rescue truck. And with 2 of them, you'd be running 24-year-old trucks, and I just don't think that's going to work. Previously, the ambulance corps had been able to put money aside to buy their own, but given what's going on with COVID and everything, our income stream has dried up and we're not able to produce that money anymore. So it's going to fall upon the town. The third item was $70,000 for radio equipment, and that was for police and fire. And that was on Cucumber Hill Road to add another listening site to improve communications in the town. I'm not sure if you're aware what happened earlier this year with 2 EMTs and the chief of police going to the hospital because they had an incident, and I wasn't there, but I was told there were communication problems. Hopefully this would address this. I don't know if it would, if the chief's still in that. But again, this is for both police and fire, the 70,000. And that's all I have to say.
Anybody have any questions for Tom? Okay, I might as well, Tom. Nobody else wants to ask you.
Okay.
You guys are third-party billing, right?
Yes,
So with COVID, nobody's going to the hospital now? You guys aren't making any money?
that's about the size of it. Yes.
What do they do? The hospitals are full of people. They come in there and rescues all the time. Nobody's calling. Nobody's getting sick
Not
and
going from
Foster.
Foster and rescues.
Oh, that's good. At least everybody
Well,
enforces.
The COVID people are going, the people without it aren't going. Who
Okay.
would normally go for a hangnail or whatever are not going.
I got a question for you, Tom,
Sure.
and then I'll just end it. In some of the towns that I spoke to, the ambulances that, I think I brought this up the last time, but I'll just end it after I do it again, because I feel like I should. They give a percentage of their third-party billing to the fire departments because the fire usually goes out and helps a rescue. Do the fire trucks or the fire department with 1 or 2 people on the truck come and help an ambulance call?
They're toned out for us. They usually respond. Sometimes they don't.
Okay, when they do respond, we're sending our vehicle out, the fire truck out there and somebody to help and so forth and so on. And then you guys third-party bill, you guys make the money. You don't throw anything to the fire department?
No, we don't. The alternative is,
That's something that maybe you should look into, and it might help the fire department with stuff, because every other town, 38 towns do that third-party bill. Now, that's not my decision. That's just something that I don't understand why we don't do. Okay?
if we did that, we would be coming to the town for more money to buy the truck. It's not like we're throwing parties for ourselves. All that money goes in the bank and pays for the truck. And if you check the records, the
But then why are you asking for money for another truck? If you got
Because
money,
we're not getting that money anymore. So there is no money to save to put in the truck fund.
okay. Well, we don't know how much money you have in the fund, so we're taking your word for it, I guess, Tom, correct? Helen, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Helen.
Just quickly, we had a number of years, quite a few years ago now, a problem where everybody needed a fire truck and an ambulance in the same year, and it was an emergency. And after that point, the fire departments and the ambulance coordinated and became the engineering board, and they have worked together, with Tom, nobly representing them for many years, so that they don't have to, under normal circumstances, they don't have to do that. They've been very, very good about, budgeting every year, asking for the same amount, every year, so that there does not have to be an emergency again, hopefully. And so I would like to commend them for doing that. And the one other thing is that you do have to remember that the fire departments are volunteer. And so when the ambulance is called on, there is not anybody in the station necessarily to respond. And I think when people respond, it's because they're able to.
Okay. Anybody else have a question for Tom? They're very important to us in town. I mean, if we need an ambulance, me out of all people with a bad heart, I just hope you can get here. 194, it's all the way at the end of Central Pike, so you don't get lost, just in case.
Anthony, can I just say one thing?
What's that there, Kelly?
Tom, on my spreadsheet, I was looking through our expenditures for this year and from capital, and I know that we had said there would be about 86,000, but I don't think that they've submitted them all. Could you look into that for me? Because I'm only showing 47.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Any other questions for Tom?
Do you want any background on the ambulance corps? A lot of people have no idea what's covered and what isn't, and who does what. Or you want?
Yeah, that's kind of like about a lot of things in town, Tom.
Okay.
I know you guys do a good job. Just the whole volunteering thing is pretty adamant. I mean, pretty admirable what you guys do. I mean, that's beyond words. You know what I mean? That really, really is. And I'm not the decision maker to give you guys anything. I don't see a problem with it. When it gets to the town council, they'll decide.
Okay.
All right, Tom?
Yeah.
I mean, radios, yeah, if you can't talk to somebody on the other end of town, that doesn't do us any good, does it?
Not really, no.
You know, and if a truck don't run, back to what Mike said at the beginning, if you guys spend 40,000 on a truck to keep it running, there's issues. So we'll just, we'll move it forward, Kelly, and see where it goes. Okay? All right, thank you, Tom.
Okay,
Police Department. The chief here, he's not asking for a lot.
Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here, Anthony. Can you hear?
Where'd you go,
I'm on audio.
Okay.
I'm on audio. Sorry.
All right, no problem, chief. You're not asking for a lot of money this year. What's the problem?
No, I just wanted to replace one cruiser. It's the one that Ray Peters drives. It's the 2005 Chevy Suburban. It's on its last leg, so I was hoping to be able to get another cruiser through a lease, Anthony.
Listen, I'm sure you're spending money to keep that thing on the road, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we've had some pretty high bills on it to keep it running. It's you know, at this point, it's going to be about 16 years old.
Kind of tough to have a guy go to work every day and drive around in a 16-year-old vehicle and make him happy.
He loves it.
He loves it, right? Yeah, well, it depends who's driving it, Kelly. You're absolutely right.
He does, he loves it.
He'd probably be upset you're going to give him.
Yeah, you know, Anthony, you know Ray loves it, but I got to get him a new car.
Yeah, you got to get one that he can fit in. I mean, he's not going to fit in that one. That's why he likes the big one.
Yeah.
So Mike, you must have
true.
liked the schedule, right?
Yeah.
Mike Carpenter, you must have liked the schedule, right? Because this goes towards what you were saying earlier about having a plan for vehicles. That's why we prepared this, so that we can see 10 years out, 5, 8 years out, when the cars will be based on the mileage, they will be no longer serviceable and still of somewhat value to us, and who's driving it, whatever. It's easier to do in this situation, but right, okay, so he put it up. So it's easier to do in this situation. So if you look at it, I just want to explain what's happening here. So we have, if you look at, that's why I still left 1920 and 2021, 2021, 22, because you have to look at the 3 years in its entirety. So what happened is in 19 and 20, we budgeted 109,500, 51,000 of which was to be, we budgeted for $109,500 worth of assets. We only funded 51.5. It was for the lease of a vehicle and for a purchase of a piece of equipment, the live scan outright. We did enter into a massive master purchase agreement for 2 DPW vehicles and 2 police vehicles. So the purchase agreement was for like $333,000, for example. And the lease, so that's why if you look on this document under year 1, year 2, and year 3, so year 1, you see 51.5 because that's what we funded from capital. In 2021, under year 1 and year 2 represents the lease payment of the vehicles we purchased in 1920. Year 1 represents the anticipated lease agreement for the $100,000 worth of vehicles from 2021. 21, 22, if you look under that, you'll see A, B, and C. A under year 3 is the third and final lease payment for the vehicle from lease 1 from year 1920. B is the second year of the lease payment for the 2021 vehicles, and 17,000 is for the lease payment of that vehicle. So where we're actually saying we're buying $50,000 or budgeting for $50,000, a $50,000 asset, we're actually funding in 2021 $82,000. 59.5 we're asking from capital, and 22.5, which we will be funding from the police reserve accounts from LESO and federal forfeiture monies. So the goal was to maintain an equivalent balance, to ask to stabilize the request from the capital fund each year for police. So if you see it, somewhat what we're trying to do for the engineering board. So if you see on that, I can't point to it, but Mike, if you can point to it, if you look at the 59,500 where it's highlighted, if you look all the way across, you'll see that for the next several years, we're trying to fund approximately 59,500 for the police department for the purchase of equipment. And next year, we're going to ask for the same 59.5 to stabilize it so you don't have highs and lows. But in 2022-23, we're basically using that money to fund 2 leases, and the rest will stay in reserves for the following year, where we're going to be purchasing approximately $152,000 worth of equipment, because that's when those cars. Well, Mike, you must be so happy now, right? This is what you were saying, which is.
I think, Kelly, what
Then-
we really should be focused on is, I think is what you're leading up to is reducing the burden of vehicle management and focusing on vehicle reliability. Because if we don't have the vehicles we need to provide the services that the town is paying for, then the cost of providing those services becomes uncontrollable, because we're kind of at the mercy of whoever has what we need, or
Right.
what actions we have to take to compensate for the fact that we don't have a reliability plan in place. And that would, it would be limited to the services we absolutely need. And that would be obviously highway maintenance, fire prevention, police protection. And I think one of the things we saw with the engineering department is several years ago, we generally came to the conclusion at this meeting that an annual contribution to the renewal of equipment gives you a chance to control the budget, rather than, as you said, have someone running to you with an out-of-service vehicle, creating an emergency funding situation. In fact, Helen just mentioned that. And that becomes now a problem-solving issue rather than a reliability issue. So where we know there's a need and can forecast the need, and we can control that expense with logical thought process and procedures, it reduces your workload and makes the town more efficient. Because if we can't provide those services with what we own, we have to contract those services because we can't go without them.
Right.
And
So if you look at this document, we use the mileage on the vehicles as of today's date, knowing that traditionally, and the chief will attest to this, we get anything greater than 120 miles on a vehicle. It becomes
unmanageable.
It spends more time down than it is in operations. And it's strictly because, for those who don't know, police vehicles, they have 120,000 miles on, that's driving miles, they have running and operating miles.
How many hours?
Right, hours, right, exactly. So if you see the mileage is on this chart, we've spanned it out all the way through for as long as we could, so that we can recycle through the vehicles and try to maintain a similar amount. So every year we're going to be asking for 59.5 until at some point we raise it for inflation, because we're going to have, the vehicles are going to go up in cost and everything else, to sustain the capital plan, but also to make sure that their fleet is revolving in the way that it should. So
Reliability is everything.
And it's not just that, they also have other equipment that comes up. They're going to need a copier in a few years. That's another 12,000. So that's all taken into account.
We looked at this with compliance equipment as well, and training that would not make us eligible for the matched funding that's out there. So, and this bears down on a lot of things going forward, because you have a great research effort out there to identify funding available and grants that are available. And if we're not eligible for them because we're not managing effectively, shame on us.
That's right. I think we should get a couple more big drug busts. Why don't you get on the Google thing, chief, or something like them other towns and get us a couple of bazillion dollars? you know?
Well, I was in on the Google. I was working drugs on the other, when I was in North Providence on the
Yeah,
Google
well,
money.
you know, well, North Providence is good now. It doesn't help us here in Boston. Okay, chief? Just kidding. We can just lighten it up a little bit. You know, some of you people, I see you nodding off over there on the screen. Can we take this?
No, I'm always on the hunt for grant opportunities. I've written I went to the grant school. I got us a couple of grants. You know, unfortunately, a lot of things were shut down government-wise because of the COVID, but I'm always on the lookout for grants, anything I can use to aid the town and the department, obviously. You know that, Anthony.
Yes, we know that. Actually, Chief, maybe some of the people don't, the other members don't know, the vehicle we're replacing, you really got that almost for nothing. And we've used it how many years?
16. That came from the National Guard, so that initially didn't cost the town any money. It really ran like a top for a while, but basically the last year it's starting to go downhill, and you know we got to replace it. You've seen it, you know.
Oh, obviously, and it's obvious, but it didn't cost us anything, and we got all them years out of it. Maybe we should try to 3-4 more of those. You know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And once Lesso opens up again, we're going to be able to hopefully get some, you know, equipment, you know, basically for nothing. We're just waiting on that to open up. As you know, Ray Peters, he was the Lesso guru for the state, basically, when he was with Johnson. So as soon as that opens up again, we're going to get right on board with Lesso also.
Hopefully everything clears out, Chief. Thank you for your services. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Okay, recreation.
No.
We,
skipping public works.
oh, I'm sorry, Gordon. I didn't see that. I crossed it off over here. Public Works, that's after the police department. Public Works, I didn't see any pictures here.
Hey, Gordon was on.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Where is he?
I'm here.
Oh, just your voice. Okay, Gordon.
You want to look at me, I'll put it up. It's your choice.
No, I can.
That's
Oh,
me.
there. Okay, now I can see you. Okay.
Yeah, but you don't have to see me. That's the point.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever you want to do. Go ahead, make your pitch. Was this, make your pitch there, Director.
Well, there's a bunch of a pitch. This was pretty much almost in play when I showed up. Keep in mind, I started a week ago Monday, and there was a lot more things to deal with, and this was pretty much all set. I did get brought up to speed. We were originally asking for 2 trucks. When I talked to my guys, they had put that in, and I agreed both trucks were in rough shape, but I'm more leaning towards replacing one. An example, the Mack that we just got, which is fairly new. We do have a new payloader that's working out pretty good. On the side, I'm going to get some little extra attachments for it. But on the capital end, they had 2 trucks. I'm vying for just one, so I took one out, or if it didn't even make it in. I know they were asking 2. One Mack. We have some older trucks. The Peterbilts are in extremely rough shape. One of them is the rust on the motor. The block is about ready to rot right through. We've got an excellent mechanic and fabricator who's helping out us tremendously. But of course, you can't fix a rusted block. The second Peterbilt, they were both bought about the same time, I think a year apart. That initially has heavy rust on the frame and the body. And both those Peterbilts they're basically side dumps. If you ever see Sandra's side with the dump up sideways, the sanders are actually built into the bed system. So the dump body tips to the side, the sand hits there's a track in there built into the body, and it hits the sander and go. In the summer, they have little guards that put over them so you don't damage the sanding system that's built into the body. Problem with that is, you can't throw any big rocks or anything, so you got to be gentle with it. But that second one with the body problem and the sander problem, it actually rotted so much where the sander side, which, it doesn't make the body as strong because the chain system's in it, it rotted. And we had to actually cut that apart and fabricate that and get it up to snuff. And we just got done with that this week. So both those trucks are in extremely rough shape. My long-term goals on the truck situation is, again, I jumped in kind of in the middle of winter, and next year I'm going to be looking to subcontract one or possibly 2 routes out, and not 2, but 2 if we have a heavy storm system, I'm gonna get some subcontracting on 6-wheel trucks like we have. They generally, under the state bid, is about $120 per hour. And the unique part about that is if it don't snow, you're not paying. You're not maintaining the truck that's sitting there all winter, because it's, we don't need that many trucks in the summer, but when it snows, we do need a lot of trucks. And we pay small amounts of money for people to go in, if we can find them with a CDL to drive them trucks. And you can't find them anymore because we're competing with the subcontractors out there that are paying $20, $25 an hour to sit in them trucks, and we're not even near that. So we can't get anybody. It becomes a problem. I think the answer is to start subbing some routes out. If it's a small storm, we can certainly handle it in-house. And if it's anything larger, we can start subbing the routes out. And the larger it gets, the more subcontractors we can bring in. So that's the route I'm going to take next year. But that being said, the trucks that we're going to use, I want to get a smaller amount of trucks that are in a better shape, because we'll be using them more through the summer and the winter versus trucks sitting all summer not being used only in the winter. So I think by replacing that Mack and just getting one, we'll be heading in that direction. The other thing that what was mentioned is it's been on the list for a long time, was the wash bay. The wash bay purpose is to get more life out of these vehicles and treat them a little bit better. You can power wash them down all you want. We have problems when it's cold out. Who wants to stand outside and power wash? It doesn't get done too good. So we primarily try and do it on a day like today. We'll try and catch up on the spraying. They're not done right after the storms because we're playing catch up. But the idea for the wash bay is, being, a septic engineer, designer, dealing with DEM in the state of Rhode Island. I know you can't have any laundromats and you can't have any car washes in the state of Rhode Island unless it's going into the sewage treatment facility that municipalities through the sewer systems. They're not allowed to go into leach fields. So I kind of figured right off the bat, any type of system that we're going to put in with a wash bay is going to have to be a reclaiming system. And I'm currently trying to work through that will work in a commercial way and be able to recycle the majority of the water. And with us being in the Northwest, I'm trying to contact with a guy that we can remove. We've got the additional thing of having to remove the salt from the water that we're going to reuse as we're washing salt off. So there'll be filters we'll have to maintain, but we're not going to be paying for a sewage bill or a water bill coming through. What I'm thinking is, and I'll try and get the picture up on my phone. We've got, if you ever been by the garage, the newer part has 3 bay doors. And the idea of the wash bay is actually built inside. And what we would be doing is, and I don't know if you can see this, I'll try and put it up there. That's the garage that we currently have with the 3 bays. To the left side here is where the parking lot opens up, and the trucks are actually pulled to this side where we plug them in outside to keep them warm with the blocks. What I'm thinking is simply putting an addition on another 18 to 20 feet. I got to figure out how much room I need for that wash system and room to wash the vehicles. And that would be to the left of that. So I'm thinking that's 40 feet deep, door on either side, with the reclaiming system inside, on reels with the nozzles. You can just hook up on either side and wash the trucks. But also they have it where you, I don't know if any of you have ever been by the Rhode Island landfill resource recovery. And you'll notice they have an outside undercarriage washing to clean the trucks off before they hit the state roads. This would also have the system in the floor where the police cruisers can, when they fuel up, can drive through the garage and have the undercarriage washed, especially during the day when we're there. And that could help the cruisers on their life and also our trucks. So what we had in here was replacement of that roof of that 3 bay garage I just showed you. And I talked to Kelly about that, to put that on and then starting that addition on the end and then put a new roof and an addition on. We decided to move that and not do that, but entail that into the construction of the addition on the building, because when they're putting the addition on, they could simply strip over those 3 bays. They're already there or already be in it. Would be much more cost efficient to do that roof when we put up the addition for the wash bay. So I'm trying to push that off so I can get those plans in play and get estimates on the wash system and that additional addition on that garage to put that wash system in. It's been, I mean, I think that's going back almost 10 years. The thoughts of it started before we started putting money in. So I'm definitely moving on that. A huge priority for me is the bridges, and primarily, our treasured covered bridge we have on Central Pike. That first arose several years ago with the state. We had a problem with the I-beams. The head walls are pretty good on it, but we do need to change the I-beams underneath. And I think I had some of the construction guys that were at Helen. Jed was with me. We discussed it. That probably can be done without removing the actual covered bridge. We can do it underneath that because that's separate from the actual bridge. How you doing, Jed? Remember our conversation? We went over that with the guardrails and stuff. So we're going to get some engineering on getting that repaired. And I'm also going to kind of use a little bit of clout trying to, the town of Coventry had, I don't know if you're familiar with Bob's Hill Road. They had a bridge that was out, and in the fire departments, we were playing equal with Coventry to cover their district because their trucks couldn't go over. The state actually repaired that bridge for the town of Coventry. And I think pretty much the deal is they pretty much paid for it, but the towns have to sign a contract to maintain it to the state standards. So I think at this point, if I can find out on the state side, I got a few leads I can go to up there and see if they can work with us on funding repairing that bridge, and we'll sign the commitment to do that, to maintain it. And then that'll relieve some of the funds to address some of the other bridges. Again, that's just a wish list. We've also got some money, and it was mentioned about the grader. We do have a fairly old grader. We do have a large amount of dirt roads. I think us and Exeter are probably the largest in the state. So they take a lot of manpower, they take a lot of gravel, and that machine is key. We used to have the older one as a backup, but now we're down to one. And when that one breaks, the circle table on it's getting pretty worn out. But if that one goes down, we're down. We're just using a backhoe dumping gravel on backblade, and it doesn't do it efficiently. So we're looking at funding a grader in the future. But I've also talked to Ray Peters, dealing with him also when I was on the council in the LESO program. He's absolutely an asset. And sometimes we can get things. We got a bulldozer, and that paid off some cruisers and stuff, but not necessarily. We're going to try and get a grader, but many times you can get things that really we can get rid of a year after our contract's up, and that can be redirected in areas like that. So I've got a lot of angles on that. And like I said, I just started last week, and I've got a lot of things I'm dealing with at this point. But paving's always key. From what I understand, I talked to Allstate, and we have 500 ton that's owed to us, and that was committed for Paine Road. And there was some funding, I think, like, I don't know how much was left, $60,000, $70,000 to address North Road. And I've got to get to the bottom of, I guess we had a DEM issue that something had to be done, and they didn't have the manpower to do it. So we had to do that in-house. And at that point, I just got to find out if we're ready to go. And the asphalt plants are pretty much shut down. They close down at Christmas, and they won't be starting up for a while. But those are to finish the funds that we have. But moving forward, paving is a continuous thing, and it's very important you don't get behind on that, because once you get behind on that, it's hard to catch up. So
quick question, Senator. Gordon, Director, whatever. Who decides what road we asphalt?
Well, pretty much we'll go through the DPW director will address it, and he'll address which ones are the worst. And obviously I've been traveling a lot of roads, and that's key, and you'll check them out. And a lot of times we'll do sections of them. So we'll have to go back and, hit a section of Boswell Trail that we didn't do before. We just got done doing Anthony Road.
Yeah. Why would we choose a dead end road?
I was not involved in that decision. I don't want to disparage anybody who chose that. That's not my position. I'm sure there were reasons, and I can't argue that for somebody else. So at this point,
if we're gonna do that, I got a dead end road myself, not as long as Anthony Road. We could use that 500 tons and do my road. I think that was crazy.
Again, Mr. Chair, I don't want to point any fingers. That was prior to me. I know Paine Road is a good choice. That Paine Road is in rough shape. It needs to be done. There's quite a few, some parts of, I think, Windsor Road we did over, and there's other parts that still need to be done.
You agree with me, roads that are more traveled with more houses on it should be asphalted versus 4 houses on a dead-end road. I mean,
And at some point, 4 houses on a dead end road must also need to be repaved. Again, I don't know how bad that road was, and I didn't make the decision. And again, I don't want to disparage that decision. We're moving forward at this point.
Okay, is the covered bridge a historical or anything, or that's just something we had?
It is not a historical bridge, but I am going to push the issue that I don't know how many wedding couples have taken pictures there. It is the only one in the state. I can't tell you how many people running for town council have taken pictures at that bridge. That bridge is on our town badges as our markers. It's on our cruisers. It's on a lot of our headers. So that being said, that carries some type of weight, clearly more than the Bob's Hill Road Bridge, in my opinion, that the state, and again, we have an opportunity to say that, you sent some money to Coventry, you sent some money to Situate, you sent some money other places. We have never received any. Another thing we need to get on is the TIP grant that the state provides, but that takes planning moving out years ahead. You simply just don't, hey, can we have some money for this road this year? That's more like a 5-year road plan that we get on the state and we get put on the list. And many times that gets pushed off because priorities overrule.
Well, we might have, obviously, Gordon, one of our things on the planning board is the 5-year road plan, but there's never any money for it or anybody who wants to talk about it, but we might have to bring you in because that's something we're going to be working on. And I think just randomly picking a road and saying, okay, let's go asphalt that one and let's go do this. I think we need to really come up with maybe a real 5-year road plan.
Well, again, the 5-year road plan is only, and the problem isn't the 5-year road plan, but the 5-year road plan fails when you don't fund the 5-year road plan.
Well,
So we come in front as department heads, we come in front saying, hey, listen, we've got, and the same thing happens with the fire trucks, and that's what happens. And the same thing happens with the DPW trucks. There's only so much money to go around, so things get caught. And again, the 5-year road plan, we can put it on paper, but if it isn't funded, it's not the DPW director's fault.
A simple thing, okay? If we're saying we're gonna asphalt roads every year, we're saying 200,000 every year to asphalt the road, then maybe we should plan out which roads should be asphalted by looking at them. It's not ready this year, but next year it's gonna be, instead of throwing dots and somebody saying, come asphalt my road.
We don't, with all respect, we don't. We pick the roads that are the worst and we put them on. A lot of them are on the 5-year road plans, but more get added to that list as the 5-year road plan gets pushed off because of funding. Okay. And I'd like to speak about leasing. There are times when leasing is good, but on a finance end and managing a town, the caution that I want to portray is when you start leasing many different things, you know what gets pushed off because you're committed to that leasing, that money's already encumbered and you're only putting 2 or 3% into capital. And when you're locked into those leases, that money's already encumbered. What will happen is the 5-year road plan will take a step back because now you can't fund that $200,000 a year to keep up with the 5-year road plan because you've got $300,000 encumbered in leasing because you're leasing fire trucks, you're leasing police cruisers, you're leasing Max for the DPW. It ties up your wiggle room, and what happens is the roads pay the price for that. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like, let's spend 500,000 this year on a truck.
No, we don't do that.
On that shit. Oh, we'll put $100,000 a year for the next 5 years before we buy a truck. And by the time we buy the truck, it's all opinions. Your opinion's better than mine, and mine's better than his. It's just,
like I said, I think looking at it, sitting in on the other side and now sitting on this side, I think the solution is to sub out some of the routes. As long as we keep our guys busy, and we're bringing guys in, the first ones that get shut off are the route guys, and there's plenty of work to go on for ours. We can consolidate the amount of trucks we have, get away from them trucks that have the sanders built in the body, and go with slide-in sanders because we can utilize them more for heavy-duty use in the summer, and we utilize them in the winter. We do have the fire truck that was come from Moosup Valley, is fitted with a sander now, and it's fitted with a plow, and that's ready to go. I just want to,
the best thing you said, Gordon, is a truck with a 3-yard sander that you take out and use it during the summer instead of it sitting there. And the other thing that you said as a department head that makes a whole lot of sense is maybe subcontracted some of the bigger routes or whatever. So like, no maintenance, no gas, no fuel, no payment, no anything. If they smash into the tree, it's their truck. They go in the ditch, it's their truck. It's not on the town. My obvious thing, if it works for 38 other towns and cities, why do we always have to be the one that goes against the grain on doing anything? So I think those are pretty good ideas, because those Macs just sit there all year long and they don't do a thing. And we use one little dump truck all year long for everything. So all the power to you, Gordon, and congratulations to the job. I mean, and use a little political clout up the river. Maybe we can find some money.
That's what I'm hoping on.
Thank you. Let's just move forward and, I'm sorry, any questions for Gordon?
Yeah, I just got one.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, out of service, Gordon. How many, when you jumped in there, what was your assessment of vehicles you could count out of service?
We've actually done pretty good. I want to give kudos to Bob Law. He has taken that department in equipment and pushed and been a priority. And we've got some pretty good equipment. The Lesso trucks have done as well, but we do have problems with them. It's kind of, the large Lesso, the Freightliner, is a very, very extremely large truck. It is a 10-wheeler, and as you know, being in military, Mike, it has the self-inflated tires. It's got heavy-duty everything, and the plow that was put on was retrofit because it wasn't made for a plow. So it trips a lot on the dirt roads, and which causes damage. It also is so heavy and extremely large. When you get to the side of the shoulders, you're really doing damage to the roads over time. So that truck should not really have a plow on it. It should be used as a 10-wheeler, doing the heavy duty work and hauling gravel to the dirt roads where we can spread it with the grader. The other Lesko truck is a little bit better, but it's like smaller vehicle when I say better. But on the same token, it is such an old, it almost looks like a 50s style, but it's not. But it's still where the military still stayed in the buggy age, where up here, the window wipers barely work. They move very slow. And in the winter, when you're plowing snow, it doesn't keep up with it. And the defrosters cannot keep up with defrosting the window. So in any big storm, it is a safety issue driving that. And that's where the other fire truck, which I think is going to be an asset, is a 4-wheel drive, 6-wheel, a little lighter, easier on the roads, will do it a little better. Those military trucks got us out of a pinch when we were in dire need of plow trucks, and Lesko and the police department helped us out tremendously. It got us over.
They were for free.
It got us over the dilemma that we were in, and we're slowly starting to dig out of that. And I think the combination of subbing some routes out and having dependable trucks that are used all the time, and not having a whole bunch of trucks parked there just to be used in the winter, and having a hard time finding qualified men to put them in, and spending money and repairing them needlessly. I think I'm gonna push in a little bit different direction, as I mentioned. But the overturn is the vehicles that we're gonna have should be in better shape, because they will be used year round. And we're gonna try and get away from the stuff that we just put for the winter that constantly breaks down. We've got our mechanic is out there assisting us plowing, but what happens is we have so many breakdowns with these trucks. He then inadvertently comes off the road to repair the stuff, or with somebody to help him, which again puts us behind out on the road. And with the vendor list, when something like that happens, I can go to the next guy on the list. If I pull my mechanic out and he's working on something, I can replace him with the vendor list. If a vendor breaks down, I go to the next guy on the list.
Good.
So it's an asset that can be utilized quite well.
It would be very helpful for the planning board, because of the fact that you're looking at the root cause, which obviously is not having a wash bay, which is causing a lot of the rust problems.
Yep.
Management of vehicles, which you've addressed with contracting and updating. And what would be very helpful with the planning board is I've been around long enough to assure you that I don't think there are many people on the planning board that know how many vehicles we should have. So I think, based on the fact that you've uncovered some bottom line issues and you're moving in a direction to correct them, another extremely important thing for us to have in presenting to the council would be our ideal fleet, how many vehicles we should have, and the purpose of the vehicles. So we're not presenting a basic laundry list. We're saying this is what we absolutely need to maintain our transportation network. So I know I'm giving you a task, in other words, but I think it's viable, and it's really important, because that way the focus can be on essential equipment, not peripheral equipment that's in transition from daily use to occasional use, from contract use to regular use. We'll have a handle on, we need 6 dump trucks, we need a grader, we need a loader, we need a brush hog, we need a chipper. And I think the capacities, if you could also identify the capacities of those vehicles, because I don't think that's ever been done before. The per ton capacity of the dumps, axle configuration, plows, no plows, sanders, so forth. That would really help define budget parameters, so we're not spending money on things we don't need, and we're not repairing things that have questionable value.
Well, but here's the issue, and again, I just want to keep emphasizing, when we get to the end of this plan, right now, we have a lot of trucks, but we have the breakdown factor because of why we have a lot of trucks. We have a lot of trucks that are very old, so you may need a spare to the spare of the spare. So when we go to the route, and again, the spare to the spare to the spare is constantly being repaired by the mechanic. So you've got a double hit there. What I'm going to try and do is get away with them, supplement with the vendors, but the main, and this is what I want to emphasize, the main trucks that I want to keep in service are going to be more important to be kept newer. It's going to save you money in the long time with the wash bay, but it's going to save you tremendously on not having the spare to the spare to the spare, and the mechanic that comes along with that. So I just want to emphasize, when we get to the end of this plan, that we don't start ignoring our base core of vehicles that need to be almost like the 5-year road plan or the fire trucks.
Sounds like a good plan, Gordon. The other thing too, you could.
Just one more thing. How realistic is it to operate on a cost per hour basis for town DPW?
Meaning, that's kind of a wide range question pertaining to
the vehicles. In other words, equipping all the vehicles with hour meters and assigning the cost by hour as a comparative analysis.
Well, you'd have to break down the cost of the truck over the lifespan, and then, our guys by the hour, they're probably making 18, but time and a half in the winter. But again, a truck, our ideal truck is like a 35,000 GVW 6-wheeler, 6 to 10 yard dump body on it. That is our ideal, where it's kind of big for the dirt roads, but it's doable, but it's acceptable for our paved roads. So that's an ideal truck. Where that's why I explained that 10-wheeler Freightliner with the military specs is just too big. So that's our ideal size truck. In the vendors on the current today's market on that truck is $120 an hour, and we're not paying the insurance. We're not paying pension. We're not paying, if it breaks down, we're not paying to repair it. And importantly, if it doesn't snow, we're not paying nothing. We just got to have a reliable vendor list. And I would even suggest we have an opportunity to get better vendors, because the difference between the town of Foster and the state of Rhode Island is, because I know a lot of guys that do, the state of Rhode Island is the biggest vendor for subcontractors. The state of Rhode Island, and sometimes on years, get 3 to 4 months behind on their payments. And these guys are constantly complaining. Where the town of Foster, we're pretty much, once I sign off on that and it gets to the council, those checks are off and running. So even if we charge a $5, we pay $5 more than the state list, we're going to get more choices to get people to come out here.
Listen, if you charge $5 less than the state list and you pay right on time,
yes,
okay, you'll get more guys. Okay, guys will take a $10, $15 an hour hit if they get paid right away instead of waiting 60 days. Okay, I got 7 trucks that do this all day long. I've been preaching this for years. Nobody listens to me. Now it's a good idea. Another thing I would give you, I wouldn't let any vendors sand and salt, because a lot of salt and sand in the state and the other towns disappears, and we pay for it. What happens in Cranston and Johnston that I work for, They do their salting and their sanding, and the subcontractors only plow snow.
I do agree with you to extent, we're getting in the weeds a little bit, but Anthony, but again, I'm not the size of Cranston. When I say I have 1 or 2 vendors, that frees me up to keep an eye on them. And we can also require that these vendors have metered systems and they're preset to our requirements.
You could do that, Gordon. And if they want to sand also, you pay more, but you got to keep an eye on this. Well, you know what? You're going to feed them, so you know how much salt. That's right.
We feed them. And again, our mixes are different depending on the, and that's where it also helps us, because remember, when we're out, we put a different sand salt mix on our dirt roads versus our paved roads. So we may just send our truck out doing sanding dirt roads and have him with the sand and the sander only doing the paved roads when he clears them. So it really is.
If we're feeding the truck, you can
keep
an eye on it. You know how much state, well, you're a senator, you should look into it. You know how much state salt disappears?
I know all about, and again, something you don't realize, that a lot of these state vendors will go home with it, but you got to realize the difference between the state spreads straight salt. The town of Forster does not.
Okay, and they just put a pile of straight salt, pile of sand, they mix it, they sell it, and they made money on our money. Okay.
We don't do straight salt at all.
Okay, moving ahead. What's next? Any more questions for Gordon? Good luck, Gordon. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Everything sounds pretty good, buddy. Anyone else? Okay. Next, land trust, 0, that we can move right along.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Land trust is represented here?
Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. Okay, I was wondering who Linda Tibbetts was going to be doing.
All right.
Doesn't Mike Bonds' picture? You guys all see Mike Bonds' picture over here smiling? I mean, it's driving me crazy. I keep staring at him like, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. All right.
It's creepy, Mike.
Oh, God.
So I'm not sure if you received the information that I have just after our last land trust meeting submitted. I do have it. If I can screen share, I would share it with you. But the first thing is that we are withdrawing the request here because it is in the wrong form. It looks like we are requesting money to come out of the town capital reserve, which is not true. We have a land trust capital reserve that's specifically and only for the land trust. So we need to present to the planning board, but we don't need to present right here in this spot. I would recommend that you skip to recreation, finish up what you're doing now with the town capital reserve, and then talk to the land trust. So you can have this part off your docket, but you still do need to talk to the land trust.
Okay, so you want to do that? Do you want us to move forward tonight?
I would
continue with you?
I'm fine. I've been here waiting and I don't mind still waiting. It's up to you guys.
Okay, well, we can go. I mean, the next ones are pretty easy.
That's what I thought. So if we finish up with recreation and then come back and talk to me, we'll see if we want to do it today or set up a different meeting.
Okay, we'll ask Kelly right now. Recreation, Kelly, that's allotted because we need that 137 to finish the field, correct?
Yes, Mike and I looked at this together and Mike asked for, Mike, you put in that quote, didn't you? From Crossman Engineering?
Oh, yeah. Let me bring that up.
So basically we have a $500,000 grant, of which we have to match the 100,000. So we need the 100,000. We have 112,500 if you agree to put the 62.5 from the townhouse in towards this program. But the project itself is estimated to cost a minimum of 650,000. So the grant that we applied for, we didn't say, hey, we do the portion of the project that equaled the amount of money you were giving us. We said we would complete the project. So we have to fund the completion of the project. So we need the $650,000 basically. And then that doesn't even provide us, Mike, if you can scroll down. So it's 650 plus there's an estimate of some of the other things that weren't included in this. So we have the 400 from the grant. We have 112 if you agree with the 62.5 already put aside. So that's 512. we need the remainder. We need the remaining portion from the 650 to the 512. And then in the meantime, we will, we have a payment in lieu fund. I don't know if all of you or some of you do know what that is. I know some of you do. When we, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we have a subdivision, right, Mike?
That's correct. Yeah, they pay $13.75 per lot, I think.
Something like that goes into that fund. So we have used that fund for the original $116,000 to level the land. And then we've used that fund to purchase the land years ago. And now we have obviously depleted that fund. But we will have a decent amount in that fund. We're anticipating at the end of this year, maybe 50, 60, 60, 70,000. It's hard to anticipate. But we're thinking we can cover the extra things down below that we need to cover as they come up. But we need to fund from the capital the $650,000. So 650 minus the 400 is basically 250. We have 112. We're asking for the remaining portion this year. Is that how we presented it, Mike, on the
Yeah.
narrative without going back to look at it?
So in layman's terms, how much do we need to finish the project?
About 100 and, how much, Mike? About 125, 135, what was it?
137 is what we're-
137.5.
Okay, that 137, what we have left to finish the rest of that project, correct?
We believe so based on the estimate. Now, it is only an estimate, but it's an engineer's estimate and we include.
And it's gonna go to bid and we can find somebody to do it the right way, maybe for less money.
I really have no idea, but we have to have the money available so that we can actually go up.
Exactly, I get that.
Yeah, Crossman Associates who did that estimate, they use industry standards for estimating what it cost. So we had something, firm to present you with.
Right.
And knew what we
Okay.
were
Now,
asking.
this is where it's gonna get tricky. If you don't apply the 62.5 from the townhouse and you start that project now before completing the recreation, we need 137.5 plus the 62.5. So that's why we both, Mike and I, talked about it, and we recommend that we move that 62.5 to this project, complete this project in the upcoming year, and then evaluate what we need for the townhouse.
I guess, okay, so you're taking that 56,000, Kelly, or whatever, from the townhouse that we put in and put it towards this? Can you take this off, Mike, so I can see all you guys?
Oh, yes. Sorry, hold on. There you go.
Boom. There's Mike Bond smiling again. Hey, Mikey. Okay, so you took that 56,000 real quick from the
Yeah. So it's the 62 that was reserved for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. We're putting that towards the rec. Okay.
That's Kelly's suggestion. Kelly and Mike.
Okay, that's what's, okay, real quick, so we can move forward real fast. Back to kind of like what Mike Carpenter said about the school. What's more important listen, I'm a coach and a jock, so I think recreation is more important to me than fixing an old building. But that building is crying, from what I understand, pretty bad, the townhouse, and we're gonna need some money there to just, even, we didn't get a grant, but am I right or wrong, Kelly? We're gonna need some money there to kind of like fix it a little bit.
The problem with that is too, don't forget, like some years ago, with, they've signed something that basically said that when we do work on the building.
Oh, it's gonna be by a certain guy.
It's historic, so it's not just.
It won't be a little fix. So, and the thing is, the grant that we got is contingent on the fact that we have to complete this project in the way that we said. So we can't actually finalize the grant, or if we're trying to change the scope of the grant, we run the risk of losing the grant. So
For the field.
for the field,
Okay.
so we have to fund that. And rather than fund $200,000 this year, I'm just saying that we might be better off putting aside. It's not a matter of saying it's less important. It's a matter of finishing a project before you start another.
No doubt about it. I was just wondering if we could get money for both. That's,
When we go to calculate what we're looking at funding, I think it's a heavy ask with
Is,
both.
okay, Kelly, is it back to the field stuff? Okay, is it necessary? I don't see on the next, you guys keep telling me all this stuff, but I don't see where you're gonna fit the soccer field, tennis courts and basketball courts on what's left.
The engineers have said differently. So, I mean, and
Yeah, okay.
so-
Now, all right, that's one question.
and
Here's
if you
another.
do look at the plans, they're kind of behind each other. There's one here,
Yeah,
one here.
I did. And here's another thing, Michael, I was looking at, real quick is, thinking of putting up, a, concession stand and nets and stuff like that. I come from a big town in Smithfield, which has 1,050 soccer players and has, close to 700 little leaguers. And the town didn't pay for the concession stands or the nets or anything like that. The associations, the soccer association, the little league, we've had fundraisers, so forth and so on, to build a concession stand, and it didn't cost the town anything. We just kind of helped them. The town kind of helped us along with it, maybe some little stuff. I mean, we don't even have enough kids to play, and we want to build them everything. I don't understand the scope of that. I mean, shouldn't they kind of like, you know, I mean, you know, you can maybe, with the money you had there on some of that stuff, you know.
It's not in the 650, Anthony.
I thought it was, Michael.
It's below. It's one of the things that weren't included in the actual.
Are you sure? Wait, I just put all this together.
Mike, can you put it back up?
Get it back up there, Michael.
Yeah, concession building below.
43, and then below is the concession. Like we're, obviously, we would I don't see us building a $60,000 concession stand.
No, that's like the Civic
That's
Center.
fully funding it, yeah.
No.
So that's not included in the 600 right here.
No, but the well and piping are necessary, and we would have to pay for that. So we're
Well,
saying we could pay
yeah,
for it
that is-
using the payment in lieu of fund.
That is a must to have a well and stuff like that.
The irrigation system, we
That's a
would
must.
have to fund, but we have enough in the payment in lieu fund to fund it. But what we need from capital is the 650.
And the 650 is gonna get us, can we
The
eliminate,
things listed above.
okay, can we eliminate a couple of basketball courts? Are there kids that, don't we have them at the school? To go play
It's
basketball?
part of the project that was submitted to the state for the grant. We can't alter that project. Like,
We can't adjust that
you
at all.
can't remove a whole section, no.
Okay, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
just questions I had. And let's not forget, once we get the field up, if there's enough kids and people in town that are gonna use the field. If we don't even have a league in town. We don't have teams to even say, go raise money and have a car wash to build a concession stand. We can't field a team. We send them all over the state. That's why I think this field is crazy but that's okay. I'm not gonna say anymore.
I do think we have a team. It's just part of a tri-town team.
Yeah, you gotta mix them in. We gotta get kids from everywhere. Go ahead, Georgie.
I just, on soccer, half of the kids are going to Situate and the other half of the kids are playing with Burrville Gloucester.
Correct.
Yep.
Right.
I'm not even sure about baseball.
Baseball, they play in Gloucester and Situate the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just, you know, listen, if we had, it's a lot of people, but I mean, there were so many kids in Smithfield that play Little League and soccer that it's bizarre. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. I ran the concession stands there. I sell Bell's Lemonade at the concession stands, and the money they make on the concession stands pretty much funds everything there. You know, we can't even field 11 kids to play on a U12 team in town. So that's really spending that. But maybe for the future, that's why we're planners. We're planning for the future. Okay, Mike, you put everybody up here next. Okay. Any questions for the recreation director? Oh, there isn't one here. I guess, Kelly, that's what we got to do. I mean, we got to finish that project. You make a good point. You know,
Right, Mike? We agree?
Yeah.
Finish one before we start another one and see if we can get something for that townhouse, because it's going to need some sort of repairs.
In the meantime, there's nothing to say that we can't reapply for the townhouse grant. It just might mean that in this cycle, that it wasn't a good fit, like they had other things that
Yeah,
were.
good point. Good point. Maybe
Right,
there'll
we
be
could
another one. coming up.
reapply.
maybe there's another one coming up or something and they
Right.
give it to somebody bigger. That's fine.
It's kind of like the DEM grant. We didn't necessarily, it's about what fits in, what takes priority over a section of time. We took priority this second time because it's phase 2 of a project they've already stood behind.
Maybe we
Right.
go, maybe we can go find something from another grant totally different than that one. on
It's
small
true.
stuff.
We might be able
Yeah.
to find something in this time that we have.
Even if it's for small money and we have to match it to replace things or fix it up to snuff, but that'll be good. Okay, I'm good with that. We just have one more. We have the land trust, correct?
Yes.
Right. I'm going to the bathroom.
And that's, the land trust is right there requesting $252,500. And there was a recommendation of 0. Okay,
So did you receive, is Mike still, Mike,
Yeah,
did you
Linda,
extend
sorry.
everyone the
I
information?
forgot to send along your withdrawal, but I'll
Okay,
put it up.
can I screen share then?
Oh, yeah, you should be able to if you want to go for it.
Okay. Host disabled.
Oh, hold on a second. Here, try it now.
Okay. All right. So I think most people need a little bit of background on both the land trust and the funding for the land trust, because it does not affect the town's capital reserve. All right, so we do have a separate account. Kelly just left, so I can't give you the numbers for that. I don't know if Kelly's back yet, but as of our December 31st tally, we have $254,392 and change in a capital reserve account. Now, we're withdrawing what we had presented to you earlier, because the monies that we would expect to spend would come only from this account, right? The Foster Land Trust, we're an arm of the town of Foster. In our in the town audit, we are listed separately as a discreetly presented component unit. So our town, the funds from the land trust are separately presented even in the audit, okay? And let's see, I don't know if we have to read all of this, but we could. So the land trust was established in Article 16 of the town charter, and amendments in 2004 and 2012 describe the assignment of the conveyance tax funds to the Foster Land Trust, and it was established by charter, voted on by the people. So the capital funds are reserved for property acquisition, grant matches, land management, and our operational expenses. So we have to pay for our insurance out of these funds. We have to pay for any type of operational expenses from these funds. We need to make sure that there's always some in reserve should there be any type of litigation, excuse me. And it's not funds that we would definitely spend, but it's funds that it takes us a long time to save for. These funds are not derived from the town of Foster residents' annual property tax assessment. And that's important for everybody to understand. Okay, and if I can scroll this down, will it allow me to scroll down?
You should be able to, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just have to eliminate the pictures of everything. Okay, I got it. There we go. Okay, now I'll bring you back. Okay, so the funds are derived from the state of Rhode Island refund of 45% of the conveyance tax that a property buyer pays to the state at the time of purchase. 100% of the refund returned to the town of Foster each month is designated by town charter to be held and used by the Foster Land Trust. So this money comes in and it really can't be used anyplace else. It's kind of, it's there for funding the land trust. So the land trust does not have to use town taxpayer funds. The only taxpayers who have purchased property in Foster since 2004 would have made this one-time conveyance tax payment to the state. Less than half of that tax payment would have been refunded by the state for the Foster Land Trust capital account. The average refund is about $35,000 to $45,000 annual. So it takes us a good 5 years, 3 to 5 years, to actually accrue enough money to do something major with it. And prior to having this funds, we didn't have the capacity to even apply for grants because we had no matching funds for grants. All right, so we're withdrawn from that previous request, and I have just here a summary of what, this is basically a 5 to 10 year plan for the land trust. And the first item on this, and it would go along with the CIPs you had, but we're not presenting it as a CIP because it's not for town funds. We have an ongoing grant from NRS for conservation easement on 212 acres of farmland. Taking this easement and holding this easement would not at all change the tax base of the owner, the property owner. It's already in farm forest program. They would still pay the same amount of taxes they're paying now. It just protects their farm in perpetuity.
Yeah. Linda, one question. This really, with capital, how does it like affect like it's got nothing to really do with
It's nothing to do, right? It doesn't. And
Okay.
I'm kind of curious as to why we actually have to present to the planning board, although it doesn't hurt to have planning
no,
board
because
opinion.
I mean, me, myself, I think the only part, I mean, I know it doesn't have to come in front of us. I mean, if you want to meet with us another night to do this, or that's, I mean, it has nothing to do with capital. So, but me, myself, looking at it, there's two things that I want to ask you, and then the money that you guys are accruing that you're saying has nothing to do with the town. I mean, the convenience tax that we all pay.
And everybody doesn't pay that. You only pay a conveyance tax
When you
if
buy,
you are buying a house.
buy a house or build a
It's a
house.
one-time tax.
Yeah, when you buy or build a house. If it didn't go to the Foster Land Trust, where would it go?
Well, it doesn't, it goes to the town, it goes to the state. It's a state
And the
tax.
state sends a portion. of that
Currently, the
back.
state is giving a refund to the locality of the,
That's right. So somewhere along the line in the charter.
in 2004, there was an
they
amendment.
decided, let's take this money that should go to the town, which is cash strapped right now, and we'll give it to the land trust. And that's where we are today. If I may be wrong in this history of it, okay? But that $35,000 or $40,000 a year that you're getting, when I say you, I mean the land trust, that could kind of go to the town coffers, and then we can maybe fix.
Not without a town charter change, though. And so
I know. So
this is what we have.
No, you're right, Linda, but you can't sit there and say that it's really, it's going to the state. It's not the state's money. It's not costing the taxpayers anything. Well, it is costing the taxpayers something somewhere along the line. I mean, we're trying to get an equal balance here by doing that and so forth and so on.
So may I continue though with this for a minute?
Oh, and my second thing before you continue.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't even know where these places are, like to enjoy them and like go and fishing or something.
Now that the town has a website,
yeah,
all the maps for the hiking trails are on the website. A lot of the information is on the website. There are brochures that we have made out there for public interest, and the trails, especially with COVID. Now, there are a lot more people using the trails than had been previously.
Are they wearing their masks?
Usually when you come across people, they're social distancing and wearing their masks, or they at least put them on when they're passing another person on the trail.
The reason why I say them jokes is because Mike is always laughing at me over there. He's always smiling at me on the screen. So I think my jokes are funny.
So anyway, this first item goes along with a grant that we have. It's a federal grant. We have it. It provides, we do not have the appraisal yet. We have a quotes out for getting an appraisal. So we don't know the exact amount of this until we have the appraisal. but 50% of the appraisal cost is paid for by the grant. We have a commitment from the Nature Conservancy to match what we match for the match, so that's another 25%, and we have a commitment from the owners to put back in some of their conservation easement funding that they would get from the from the federal grant. So this is actually increasing money that is in our capital account because we have other sources of to add to this. So this is an ongoing grant. The grant exists. Just like what you're doing for the field, whether or not you need this baseball field, there is a grant there and you have a commitment to it. And the land trust, actually, we have never applied for a grant unless we are sure that the money is already in this account, that we can cover our match. So that money is in there. It was in 2019 that we started this and that we have the grant for doing it. So basically that money is being spent.
Isn't it more this year?
We are trying to apply for we are going to apply for a trails grant that is new this year from DEM's trail grants. And it has an end of January deadline. What we're hoping to do with this grant is we're going to apply for trailhead improvements. There we have some properties that do not have safe parking, shall we say. It's just off-road parking. And we would like to be able to improve the parking for this area. We're working together with the North-South Trail Committee and Borders Farm Incorporated to take a certain portion of the North-South Trail that comes through town to put it into the woods, more scenic, and not have it on the roads. That's part of what is recommended in the comprehensive plan, both the current comprehensive plan, which is from 2003, and also the 2017 one that hasn't been approved yet. So working with the North-South Trail Committee is part of what we should be doing as a land trust. It's one of our responsibilities. So that would be, it's a $100,000 grant, but it's a match. We wouldn't be spending $100,000. The match can be up to 80%, depending on what we apply for. So we're trying to pick the properties that would be most compliant with the grant, which would be something that involves the North-South Trail, and we already have that ongoing. And if we do the handicapped accessible trail at Spencer property, that also gives you extra points. So we feel like we have a pretty good chance of getting this grant. If we don't get the grant, that money is not being spent. We might have to take some funds and repair or improve an unsafe parking area, out of this money, but we try not to do anything without grant funding so that we can at least.
Every time we purchase, the land trust purchases a big piece of property or some of these farms and stuff, it comes off the tax rolls anyway, so it affects
excuse me, the conservation easement that we have a grant to purchase does not take the property off the tax roll. The property owner still owns that property and pays taxes on it. All we do is hold a conservation easement on it that would say that when this property is ever sold, it still needs to be used as a farm, which is something that kind of goes along with what, according to the comprehensive plan, is what the people of the town want this to be a rural community. So it's taking a certain area of land and saying, oh, okay, this is going to be farmland in perpetuity. But it's not changing what the owners are paying in taxes. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I didn't know that. I thought it came off the tax rolls once you guys, I didn't realize it that way.
Well, you do if we own the property. If we purchase it and own it, yes, it comes off the tax roll, okay? But this particular grant that we're going for the conservation easement is different than that. Right? So, and to be honest, I mean, if we have properties and we want people to be using them, we want people to be able to have a safe way to park and not, have not get hit by a car if we're just parking off the road.
Oh, yeah, I
So
want to go
if we
fishing
can,
in
if we
that
can
pond.
improve a parking area and get grant funding to do this.
Without cutting you off, okay?
Yep. No, that's okay.
I'm looking at the clock, okay?
Yep.
Would it be possible for you to come to our next meeting? I mean,
Sure.
is that okay, Kelly? It says zero, and some of the stuff that you're asking for, and some of the things I think is kind of interesting. I don't think, it might be something maybe the planning board might have some ideas for you on what to do. And, I kind of think, town-wise, we have all this nice property in the pond. I want to go fishing at that pond, but there's no place to park. I didn't even know we owned part of that pond down on Cucumber, the Dunbar Pond stuff, and it's 10 o'clock.
And that was, we did not purchase that. That was an out and out donation.
Oh, even better.
I mean, it is off the tax rolls now that it was donated, but it was a donation. And that one definitely needs
Yes.
parking on the property because Cucumber Hill is really fast.
So the people in town can use it.
More safely, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is the board, I don't know if this is a motion or whatever, does the board agree with me on doing this to the next meeting? I mean, we're all kind of like,
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
definitely.
Okay, I'm wiped out too.
the only person that's awake here is Dr. Bonds. He's always got that smile on his face, smiling as he's wide awake. So I would love, Linda, for you to come to the next meeting, put you on the agenda because there's some questions. This is something honestly that I hear rumors and people complaining about all of this. And I really want to get to the nitty gritty and maybe we can work together and have some.
And the thing about this request is the money is there in the account, but we don't plan to use it unless we have some type of match for it. So what I'm asking for is just that we need to cover our bases. We need to have that money available in case we get a grant. But if we don't get that grant, we're not spending that money just to redo these parking lots unless there's one that is totally unsafe and needs to be done. We always try to get it. We have no properties that we're wanting to buy actually. It's all management. It's mostly for management now.
Now, is Walter May on this committee? Is he the land trust?
Walter just retired. I am the chair. I'm the chair of this.
Oh, okay.
Walter May is just, he used to do a lot of finances, but he has just retired. His last meeting was December and we have a new board member on.
Okay, and he was this, because I get this in the Conservancy, the land trust and that other that takes up the land confused. I've been in town 15 years and I have no idea what you two companies or do. I have no idea. I just know there's a lot
Conservation
out
Commission?
there.
You mean?
If you could open it up to hunting and fishing, I'm all in. And no,
Fishing is allowed. You just need to have it. You need to have a state license.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you could go fish in that pond. It was the towns. I thought it belonged to that house.
Well,
But-
it doesn't belong to the house you can see. It did belong to the Dunbars.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're gonna go, Michael, put her on the next agenda, and I think it'd be great. And I think, what is our next move? To approve all the requests or?
Let me unscreen share here.
Okay.
If I can. How do you do that? Stop share. There.
There you go. And Mike is still smiling. I gotta give that guy credit. He could smile all night.
And
Helen,
Mike Poppins, can I ask you, is that okay? Do you think if we go on to, if we postpone land trust till the next meeting?
Oh, yeah, I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah. And Mike Carpenter, you're part of the land trust too.
Oh, you're in the land trust too, Mike? I didn't know that.
You guys have to read the town charter, okay? The land trust is comprised of 5 members. All members are put on by the town council, but 2 of those members come directly, one from the planning board and one from the Conservation Commission. So it's a 7-member committee.
Really? Wow. Way to go, Michael. Thanks, buddy. We're
But
represented.
then the planning board has to read through the entire town charter.
We're represented well. I know we couldn't have sent between you and Helen, I think you'd have it locked. How are you not on this, Helen? Or are you?
Helen had been at one time for a
See?
little short amount of time.
I knew that. Okay. Any other questions? Helen?
I'm going to make a suggestion. Having received all of these requests, and because Michael and Kelly did such a fabulous job of getting all the budgets in early, I think that we have to have them to the town council by February 1st. So I think it would be possible to take, now we've got all the information.
Oh, and bring it back up the next meeting? Sure.
I think we can make our decisions and recommendations at the next meeting.
Amongst ourselves and then send it on to the town council?
Yep, we've done that in the past.
I don't see a problem with that.
When is the next meeting?
The 20th.
The 20th. Right?
I have a
I'll be
question
away.
from Mike Antonellis.
Yeah.
Can you be sure to forward that document so that people can just read through it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? I'll do it right now so I don't forget because I'm off tomorrow. And then
Thank you.
it's hard to remember things between now and Monday.
Would that be too late, Kelly? I mean, if we to send you our recommendations, send them.
It's
the
not too late. I'm away. I'll try to like sign in from where I am.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of changes, but a little discussion. and
It
stuff.
won't be a 3-hour meet. It'll be relatively quick. Can you just put it on top so I can just?
Oh,
sign-
for us, it'll be very quick.
Okay.
It'll be very quick, trust me. This was longer than actually shorter than I expected, but longer than I expected. It was the school committee took all the time. Oh, see, there's a real Dr. Bonds. He's not smiling now. All right. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Helen?
Yes, Anthony. I'm sorry, what did you?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
We don't need a second. We don't need a second.
I'm taking a roll call. You ready? Michael Carpenter,
Aye.
Hillary,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
He already left. No, Warren. I'm sorry.
David,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Anthony.
No, I want to stay here with Dr. Bonds and discuss this well. I want to really get down to the.
Well, enjoy. Yep.
Yes, Helen.
It'll be very informative.
Oh, good.
Nothing.
Okay.
And may I ask the board something? Just if you have specific questions about the land trust, if you send them to me, it would be, then we'll know specifically if you have something that I haven't addressed in the document you're going to.
No, Linda, we want to see how good you are quick on your feet, okay?
Yeah.
You can't have any time to study the questions, okay? You got to be right there in front of us, and you got to be real quick with the answer, okay?
Yep,
None of
that's
that.
fine.
You can have Mike's help.
I'll bring the whole board on.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Okay,
You
thank
should all have Linda's requests sent to you now. So, and I'll send it again ahead of the next meeting. So, all right.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Hey, Anthony,
Kelly looking good. Who wants me?
I did.
What's
Didn't,
up?
didn't realize you were a Falcon.
I was a Falcon?
You was a Falcon.
Ah, why, you from Cranston?
I was class of 70. My brother was 77.
Oh, really?
Really?
I was a legend in my own mind.
You were?
Yes. And I belong to the Cranston, see it, Mike. I belong to the Cranston West Hall of Shame also.
Ah, all right. Yeah, yeah. It's the amazing the things you learn by reading campaign literature.
See that? Yeah, I went to West. I had a good time there. I had some good teachers there. It was a pretty good place.
You didn't run into a Ducharme named Stephen, did you?
What's that?
Didn't run into a Ducharme named Stephen, did you?
I'm sure I did. I'm going to go back and look it up now that you mention it.
Yeah, he was 77. So
I was 75, so I
Yeah.
had, he was already
Maybe.
behind me. You know?
Hey, guys, when I sign off, it ends it for everybody.
Okay.
So just-
All right.
Mike, we want to stay here and have pizza and beer. Where you going, Mike?
I gotta go do an
Well,
hour and a half.
I didn't want to be
therapy
rude. You guys
exercise.
started a conversation and I was gonna. as soon as I
I
leave,
mean,
it's
Mike,
over.
I would have just clipped it if I was you.
All right. Bye, Mike.
All right, good
Say
night.
good night, Michael.
Good night.